Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Movie Battleground. This is the big one. My name is Aaron Knoll, and I'm excited to bring you the first title match of the newly relaunched Movie Battleground. We started with just a Facebook post last May after a multi month hiatus, in which I said, if people were interested, is it something I should bring back? I had a full roster in one night. It took about 3 months to get things off the ground, recording, rule set, everything good to go, but we got there. And now, after about 7 or 8 months of airing, we have finished our tournament. We have some top players already established. And today we have that first title match. And it is between in my opinion, two guys that represent the top of two different kind of generations of this game. We've already seen some really good rookies from that third generation play, but today it is the first and second. We have the current champion, Joe Hot Fuzz Farrelly, who was restored his championship after winning the 1-0 bracket tournament. He was the last person to be crowned champion in the second generation, so to speak, of Battleground before the show went on hiatus, and he put in the work to earn that back. On the other side, we have one of the top players from the OG generation that is here in Henry Sanchez, a man who has made it very close to the top of the mountain before, but has never quite been able to get there. All these years later, will this finally be the day that he can claim it? It's going to be a fun one. Let's get to it first. Introducing the challenger with a record of 5 wins, 1 defeat, and 2 knockouts. He is Henry Confidential Sanchez coming in. Henry, welcome to the title match, sir. I believe, if my memory serves, this is a place that you have been before, but it just unfortunately has not ended your way, or at least you've come very close to it. But you're here. This is the moment for you. How are you feeling going into it?
Yeah, it's one of those where I have a long history both in this league and just the community in general. So a lot of ups and downs emotionally, and having the opportunity to showcase my abilities as a debater, but also my personality and my growth as a person in general in the year 2022. It's a nice chance for me to showcase my skills, but also my personality, and I'm excited on all fronts to face Joe. He's a tremendous player, and I have not taken him lightly, as I've not taken any of my opponents lightly. I take this seriously. I'm here to have fun, but also I respect the game so much that regardless of who I'm playing and my levels of confidence, I'm going to prepare my best and put on a show.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'm not going to sit here and try and gouge your ear with questions. I know you want to get to it as much as anybody else. So I'm going to sit you in the back for just one moment and introduce your opponent, coming in as the reigning undefeated champion with a record of 5 wins, no defeats, and 1 knockout. He is Joe Hot Fuzz Fairley. Joe, welcome back, sir. And you had this surprise sprung on you at the end of last match. You would no longer be challenging for the title. You would get the opportunity to defend a title you had earned once before and have already earned. This was a decision that was made by the producers of the show in basically unanimous fashion. I don't think there was any one of us that objected to the idea, including your opponent, who was a part of that vote prior to making it to the final himself. So what are your thoughts coming into this with the opportunity to defend that title you wanted to for so long, right on the cusp?
I like defending stuff. It's like Henry. I have a lot of respect for this game, and my record here and over in the former late TV fights. Sometimes it's a horribly abusive ego boost to basically be told, yeah, your opinions are basically right about everything. It's not healthy, but it's fun, and that's what I enjoy. And like the same as Henry, I haven't underestimated my opponent here. This is fun. There are some good questions in here. Obviously, it's only strengths, which sort of the opposite of my match against Madi, where no strengths were provided. So yeah, this will be quite fun.
Absolutely. It is going to be a very, very interesting matchup. And I'm looking forward to it because it does feel like a clash of kind of older versus newer, but still kind of old because you're not a rookie. But it's going to be a hell of a match. So I'm going to bring you guys in. I'm not going to waste your time anymore. I'm not going to waste your time at home anymore. Let's just go ahead and get into this. Movie Battleground normally as the image says, is a best of 5 rounds, but this is a title match. We're on some special shit today. This is going to be a best of 7 rounds. It will take 4 points to win. However, the first 4 rounds are exactly the same. Each round is going to be worth 1 point, again, because it is first to 4 points. If a competitor gets 4 points in a row, that's a victory by knockout. And if we are tied at 3-3 at the end of 6 rounds, then we will move on to the sudden death round. However, I will be able to explain all of the rules as we go. In terms of the first 4 rounds, things are basically exactly the same, though. You guys were given the questions ahead of time. You were allowed as much time as we could allow you to prep, and you will have 60 seconds to open, 2 minutes to expand, 4 minutes to openly debate, and 60 seconds to argue before we close. Backstage, we have 3 great judges. We have Alan Shepard, we have Kevin Poss, and we have Noah McCausland, who will come on screen and make the ultimate decisions. And I made sure we had 3 judges because after my fucking history of having to decide these things, I wanted no fucking part of this. No thank you. You can at them if you disagree with what happens. I am putting the blame off. Fuck this shit. As Joe said, though, there is a twist. Because there's more interesting challenges to potentially come later, it is a title match. I did award these guys 1 specialty bonus. All 4 of these questions are strengths. Normally, each competitor gets 1 strength, meaning 2 questions are strength questions. 2 questions are randomly assigned to them. I make it a habit of not revealing the strengths. It's the competitors, their prerogative if they want to reveal what their strength was, but I never do. However, all 4 questions today are strengths. Again, I'm not going to say whose is whose, but these questions were asked for, or at least the categories were, by the competitors to have some fun with. So,
I mean, anyone who's watching this and knows me is going to guess quite easily which ones I picked.
I mean, potentially,
Probably
yes, but it's still the sanctity of the show. I'm not going to say it. But yeah, if you know either of these guys, you'll probably get there decently.
Comment below your predictions.
Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to be totally honest. Joe's right. Once you see what 2 of them are, you'll probably figure out who the other 2 were. With that said, if you guys have any questions for me, are we ready to go?
Let's go.
All right. Well, gentlemen, best of luck. Let's get into it.
Good luck, Joe.
And with that, we will go ahead and get into the first one. We are going to be talking about some classic cinema. Again, it's not something that comes up very often because it's kind of a hard thing to bring up naturally. So thankfully, we have people that do love to request classic cinema questions. Again, predict your comments below which one did it. But we're going to talk about a director that has already been brought up previously on the show with a general best of question. However, both competitors picked film that landed in the same decade. So I decided let's switch up the conversation and let's go to a different decade of this director's career. The question is, what is the best film directed by Billy Wilder released in the 1940s? All right. Now, prior to the match, the competitors, or Joe, because you are the champ, you were decided as the favorite. So you got to choose which questions you go first on. You have chosen to go first on the odds, that being 1, 3, 5. And if we reach it, the first speed round question, Henry, you are, no, wait, was it the other way around? It was the other way around. Sorry. Joe, you did the evens. 2, 4, 6, whatever. Henry, you're first on this question. That's the point that I'm trying to get at. Or if I'm wrong, that wouldn't be the first time. I guess we'll find out when you say your answer. But with that said, Henry, you're up first on this one, sir. I will go ahead and bring in the timer. I will disappear and stop spouting out potentially wrong facts, and the timer will keep ticking when you begin speaking.
All right, so when you think of Billy Wilder, you think of a classic director who makes a collection of different types of films. So the reason that he is one of the best filmmakers of all time is because of his ability to showcase different genres, mix different blends of comedy, crime, mystery, and from the 1940s, he doesn't necessarily have those. So what we went with today were 2 dramas, and mine is his Best Picture winning The Lost Weekend. This is a movie that showcases a man who struggles with alcoholism, and it's something that is transpires throughout the entire history of life. This is something that occurred in the 1940s, but it's relevant today because unfortunately this is an issue that will never go away. Ray Milland performs as Don Burnham as a character who is struggling with his alcoholism, but he's also not that bad of a guy. The movie never places him as a villain or as a terrible person, but it never shies away from his issues. And that is the brilliance of Billy Wilder's directing. And this movie is the best of the 1940s because obviously it won Best Picture. I'm not going to hammer home too much on that because, you know, those are things, but also can't shy away from the facts. Milan also won.
All right, and time.
Okay. I was figuring out that. I was like, it usually goes up there.
Yep. The fucking thing froze up on me. God damn it.
I was so confused.
Over to you for your 60-second opening.
Billy Wilder is, without any doubt, regarded as one of the greatest filmmakers to have ever worked in Hollywood. His body of work includes a number of enduring classics that are as beloved today as they were when they were first released. The man produced icons of classic cinema across 3 decades. And even if you take out the caveat of only choosing the 1940s, there are very few that come close to the quality of Double Indemnity. It's another cynical entry into Wilder's filmography. I think it's a tone that perfectly complemented noir sensibilities and almost defined what film noir was all about. I believe that Double Indemnity is a perfect blend of many different genres, showcasing Wilder's talents as a director, but also his ability to sit back and allow an actor to really fulfill the role they were cast in. It's one of the brilliances of Wilder, and I think both performers in this movie show exactly what they want. McMurray and Stanwyck are allowed to showcase it because of their talents, and I think that's something that Wilder does expertly, and I think that's why Double Indemnity even now holds up to
and
such
time.
level.
All right, back over to you, Henry. 2 minutes on the clock for Lost Weekend.
As my opponent said, Billy Wilder is a filmmaker that has made amazing movies throughout his entire career. So similar to his claim is my movie not only is one of his best movies of the 40s, but also one of his best movies. This is a movie where Ray Milland is essentially a one-man show, but there's also the support of the side characters. You start off with the support of Helen and his brother, and just their attempt to kind of take him away to have that emotional support and kind of get him out of his rut and deal with his alcoholism. But Ray Milland obviously is consistently doing a little bit of sneaky stuff. He doesn't do it in a way where he's doing anything technically terrible until a little bit later in the film he makes some mistakes. But at the beginning he's not a sleazy guy. He's just a guy that suffers from a disease. And I love the fact that Billy Wilder doesn't shy away from the realism of how this disease takes over a person, because he still has the personality, he still has the love and friendship, even when he's not completely sober, even when he is under the influence, he still has a little bit of his personality that stands out. It's later in the film as he really starts to succumb to his alcoholism that really affects him, but unfortunately that's just how it goes. And the story takes place over the span of a weekend, but it also showcases a lot of flashbacks that give a backstory for not only him and his history with alcoholism, but also his relationship with Helen and his relationship with his brother. The other main character in this movie, Nat the bartender, there's layers to him because obviously he's someone that is going to be serving Don drinks, but he's also giving him not necessarily lectures, but attempting to give him life advice. And this is a character that at any point could either have done one of two things: either completely just fed him alcohol and just made him a complete drunk, or he could have pushed him aside and never gave him the opportunity. He kind of met in the middle because he's like, at the end of the day, you're a grown man. I can never control you. I cannot hold your hand for you, but I can also help you. So that's what this that's what separates this movie from Double Indemnity, is the fact that everyone in this movie has a role. It's not just two characters, and there's layers to it, and it respects them. So that's why this is the best Billy Wilder movie of the 1940s.
And time. All right, Joe, back over to you. 2 minutes, sir.
Double Indemnity it's deliciously cynical. It's cold-blooded, and it's a film noir masterpiece, and it holds up really, really well incredibly well in our current age of the age of movies now. Some of there's a lot of irony to it, and I think that the hard-boiled, cold-blooded masterpiece of Double Indemnity holds up really well in this age. And it centers around two, terrible characters who are made for each other. You have insurance salesman Walter Neff and femme fatale Phyllis Dietrichson, and they hatch a scheme to basically bump off Phyllis's husband and collect his accidental death claim. The only problem is you also have, and this is the thing about it, it's not just these two characters. You have Edward G. Robinson playing Walter's boss and mentor, being hot on his case. This film earned 7 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, writing and directing Oscars for Billy Wilder nominations. It showcases multiple genre or multiple layers to multiple characters. It blends them really well together. Winning Best Picture is not necessarily the most important thing, as we've seen throughout the years. That winning Best Picture isn't really that. Sometimes that is a mistake. This is one of his best, and again, like not just of the 40s. It shows these multiple aspects, and it really is more steeped in realism than anything else he's sort of done. It's this beautiful blend of characters, and not only does it showcase an amazing story and a deeply thrilling story, it also manages to balance different aspects of different characters, showing the effects of the decisions they make on how it not just affects the other characters and the world around them, but also the character themselves who's making the decision. You see it through McMurray's performance in how he sort of deals with all the stuff that's going on. The direction is fantastic. The story is fantastic, and it really goes down as not only one of Billy Wilder's best movies of the 1940s, but one of Billy Wilder's best movies, which is why it constantly makes the top 3 of Billy Wilder movies.
And
not just
time. All right, we're going to get to the first open discussion of the match, gentlemen. The time will start ticking when the first person starts speaking.
So the difference between our two movies is, unfortunately, your movie doesn't have a character that you can really latch onto and root for, because like you said, both your main characters are despicable. And yes, the side character of Keys is quote unquote hot on his tails, but you never get the point of view, the perspective from his character. So you don't actually root for him. You don't really know much about him. You just know that he's decent at his job. And the sad part about this is Neff, he's successful in his field, and he just succumbs to the quote unquote sexiness and the devious acts of Phyllis Dietrichson. So at no point do you really understand why he would even throw away his life for a terrible crime in murder other than sexual nature, and that's not something that you want to lead to. Whereas in my character, he's an alcoholic that he's suffering, and he's suffering with a disease, but you're also rooting for him the entire time to get better. But you're also rooting for the side characters who are helping him and fully showing him love and support.
Just having a character to root for doesn't necessarily, make a good movie. You look at a series like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which has managed to go for 15, 16, 17 years. All of those characters are terrible characters, but you still watch it to see where it goes. My issue with The Lost Weekend is that while the Star is still on show in The Last Weekend, but it is still a movie about watching the downward spiral of a drunk. And for all the positives it has in character study, it's still a dreary viewing experience. You might not have at least with Double Indemnity, you have that thriller aspect to it of seeing where this goes and seeing how the plot comes out and all that. But it's still, for me, The Lost Weekend, it's a dreary experience.
It's not just dreary. It also showcases the process of hope, but also love and support. Like I said, there's elements of the flashback scene where you show where he came from, and so it always wasn't bad. And it's something that it just showcases the suffering of the disease of alcoholism and how he's able to kind of throw away his positive lifestyle for a negative one with the alcoholism. Whereas in Double Indemnity, it's two characters where they just meet each other for a couple of days. All of a sudden, she's like, "Hey, do you want to help me murder my husband who didn't do anything wrong? He's not a cheater. He's not an abuser. He doesn't actually deserve that." So you're not rooting against that character, similar to something like Ocean's 11, for example, where you're rooting for the bad guys. So you're not rooting for these guys. It just doesn't give you that. So mine has emotion, but it also has a tremendous filmmaking as well. There's a scene when after Don wakes up from being completely drunk the night before. You wake up and you just showcase a close-up of his eye, and it zooms in, because we all know that when you wake up and your eyes are blurry and you slowly start to see the room around you and it expands. That's a showcase of Billy Wilder's fantastic filmmaking. This one, it's a noir. If you take Billy Wilder's name off the movie, it doesn't really stand out as much either.
It completely stands out. Look, there's a reason it constantly makes almost the top of the lists, but for the 40s, it's still at the top of the list of the 40s. The thing is, your movie's a movie. It's about addiction, which in itself is a tough subject. But what Wilder offers is so unrelenting. It feels more of a lecture than a movie. The primary question asked by your movie is, what does an alcoholic get from making alcohol their primary relationship? And really, you don't really get an answer to that question. With Double Indemnity, you have that noir feel to it. You have that thrilling aspect, that thriller aspect to it. You know, I know you say you don't get much about the husband, but I think that's more the point, is that because it showcases he does nothing wrong, the point is you're latched onto these two characters, but you don't really want them to succeed, because as far as you're concerned, this person does not deserve to die. And it's the point of, can this plan be pulled off with Edward G. Robinson coming in? You know, most of Wilder's movies hold up. You look at Some Like It Hot, Double Indemnity as 2 examples, but by today's standards, I don't think The Lost Weekend holds up. You know, Don's over-the-top hallucinations, today's standards, they seem farcical. Billy Wilder has been able to establish himself as a director who makes movies that hold up, and The Lost Weekend doesn't really hold up. A lot of the aspects now are farcical.
See, that's different. There's not hallucinations. Those are actually flashbacks of the scenes of when he was able to be a decent person where the alcoholics take over. And you kind of contradicted yourself there, saying that we're not really rooting, against the character of the husband, and he didn't really do anything wrong, so it's fair. But you also said the same thing about Don, where it's like you're not really having that thing. But at the end of the day, you have the hope. And there's a movie, a perfect example of a movie from Billy Wilder specifically, where you actually get the bad guy winning at the end, which I won't get into spoilers, but in this prosecution, but you also have the point of view of the lawyer. Whereas in this one, you don't have the point of view of anyone who's, a good person in Double Indemnity and no one to root for. In The Lost Weekend, you're rooting for Don, you're rooting for Helen, you're rooting for the brother, and you're also really happy that Nat's a great guy and he's supportive.
You don't necessarily need to root for someone, though. It's about
and time. All right, last comment in there about the journey. We're going to go into the 1-minute closings, gentlemen. That was, can I just say, there's a reason these guys are at the top. That was an excellent back and forth. At no point did anyone need to instruct them. Well done, gentlemen. We have 1-minute closings left for the round. Henry, you're up first when you speak.
So like I said at the beginning, I don't want to overdo it and make it as if it's the end all be all of my thing, but my movie won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Lead Actor, and Best Screenplay. Those are not the end all be all, but those are definitely positives towards my movie. Ray Milland is a fantastic actor who showcases the good and the bad of a person who's struggling with alcoholism. It showcases that, not all alcoholic drunks are terrible people, but it also shows that if they succumb to the alcoholism, they can really go down that downward spiral. The side characters of Helen, his brother, and Nat the bartender showcases that with enough love and support and protection, you can really overcome this. And just in a weekend, something that without giving up, these characters could have totally given up on him, but at the end of the weekend, they finally showed him enough love and support, and he finally decided he's going to put the bottle down. That's something that in Double Indemnity, you say you don't need someone to root for, but the point is of asking the question, what is the best Billy Wilder film? You want that well-rounded, fully full-end scope, whereas in Double Indemnity, you don't get that. It is one-noted, and like I said, if you take Billy Wilder's name off this movie, it's it doesn't really stand out above the rest. Billy Wilder's a fantastic director, so of course this one's going to be good, but The Lost Weekend is his best.
And time. All right, Joe, final minute of the round goes to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I think the reason Double Indemnity is Wilder's best of the 40s is that even after 80 years, it continues to hold up. It expertly shows the depths of depravity, betrayal, and greed with actors on top form and snappy dialogue. Ray Milland and Jane Wyman are both great, but they lack the chemistry, whereas Fred McMurray, Barbara Stanwyck, and Edward G. Robinson all ooze chemistry. You said about the Best Picture winner, but you don't mention anything about what they're up against, what Double Indemnity was up against, or what The Lost Weekend was up against. And I think that's a big thing. Billy Wilder's style oozes from Double Indemnity. The Lost Weekend, while it's effective in tackling tough subject matter, it ends up feeling more like an after-school special than a Best Picture winner. You say you don't have a character to root for, but lots of movies you have a character to root for, and that's where Wilder stands out. He is able to pull off a noir thriller despite having a character that you're not necessarily rooting for, but still manages to grip you, thrill you, and keep you enthralled and keep you coming back after 80 years coming back to this movie. There's a reason it makes all these lists, right? Billy Wilder is a unique director. He doesn't have to do what the others do and give you a character to root for. He gives you a story that thrills you and entrances you and keeps you going till the end of the movie.
And time. All right, guys. An excellent first debate. I'm going to go ahead and bring the timer down and let you guys go chill in the back as I go ahead and bring on our 3 judges. Not a lot of facts to check here, just some quick rundowns. In terms of Academy success, since both were brought up, The Lost Weekend was nominated for 7 awards. It won 4, including Picture, Director, Actor, and Adapted Screenplay. It lost Cinematography, Original Score, and Best Film Editing. Double Indemnity was also nominated for 7 Academy Awards. However, it did not take home any of them. This includes Best Picture, Director, Actress, Writing Screenplay, Cinematography, Black and White, Best Music, and Best Sound Recording. Now, in terms of the quote that was often brought up in terms of film placement on all-time lists, there's a lot to go through. However, the one that I've decided to look through is the website Gold Derby, which is often associated with things like the Academy Awards in terms of predicting nominations, put together a list of the best 25 Billy Wilder films ranked best to worst. Both of these films did fall in the top 10. The Last Weekend comes in at number 8. And Double Indemnity comes in at number 4. So neither are quite the top 3. However, they do come very high up in the ranking of a man with a lot of cinema in his repertoire. With that said, it does go to the judges to vote based on what was said in the round. Kevin, I go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main point that sold you?
All right. Like you said, this was elite debating at its finest. So great job by both. Henry ultimately sold me on his love, hope, and support. The storyline about alcoholism as a realistic disease, not just a sleazy personality trait. He really sold me on that, and he also kind of sold on how Double Indemnity is kind of a one-note neo-noir type film. So and I didn't get enough back from Joe, I feel like, so I ultimately went with Henry.
All right, Dr. Spaceman, Alan, I go down to you next, sir. Who gets your vote, and what was the main thing that sold you?
I haven't thought about either one of these movies in a very long time, since film class way back in undergrad. So I've seen both of these movies, but it's been a while. I think I'm real big into rewatching films, rewatchability of films, and Joe really made good points about how Double Indemnity is very rewatchable, and Lost Weekend is very, very dreary and kind of hard to sit through more than once. So I went with Joe.
All right, it is a 1-to-1 split, which means Noah, we go to you, sir. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point for it?
In a championship match like this, I'm kind of looking for more explanation, like a why for your statement. So you can't just tell me the movie's good or the actors are good. Like I need a why. And for me, Henry was able to kind of do that a little bit more. Plus his adding in about the filmmaking and about the technical aspect of it and the shots that he got, as well as the characters. So I went with Henry.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and shift it to the back till the end of the next round. And that is what a championship match is, baby. All 3 judges bringing different reasonings for their points, but based off what was said, I don't think you can argue that they didn't sell what was needed to sway that particular judge. Well done from both of you guys. As we go ahead and move on to question number 2. And in this question, as we just recently wrapped up a new era of this franchise, we are on the precipice of potentially continuing with a new actor. But I think it's interesting to look back and reflect on a franchise that can't quite be broken up into things like trilogies or series. It's instead broken up by actors. The question on the table is, which of the 6 Bond actors had the best series of films? We have seen Sean Connery, we have seen Roger Moore, we have seen Timothy Dalton, we have seen Pierce Brosnan, and we have seen Daniel Craig, and George Lazenby had that one film that's actually
don't do what the Oscars did and forget to mention George Lazenby.
I was getting
Fuck
there.
you, Tony Hawk. I'm coming for you. We love you, George. We appreciate you.
Honestly, that for being like the one-off movie that feels like it should be a black sheep, it's far better than you would assume for like when you look at it on paper. But no, George did have his film. He is not an answer today because honestly, that would be a hard argument trying to argue just one film against.
It's not a series.
Numerous...
It's not a series of films.
Yeah, that's true. But the point is, which of the actors had the best one? You could argue that all six of them had their ups, and they all had their downs, Lazenby's, in that one film. But who had the best? With that said, Joe, you are up first on this one, sir. So I will bring the timer in for you, and it will start when you begin.
When it comes to Bond, everyone has their favorite. But we're not talking about favorites. We're talking about best and who has the best set of films. For this reason, we had to immediately discount Lazenby. No hate on Lazenby. He just has one film. It's not a set. Connery's great, but Diamonds Are Forever isn't. And I love more. But Octopussy is a poor movie. Brosnan was my era. It was my growing up. But Die Another Day brings him down. And Craig, despite being in some of my absolute favorites, he's let down by Quantum of Solace and Spectre. But Timothy Dalton is a man who only appeared in 2 films, but they are both strong, solid entries into the franchise. The Living Daylights and License to Kill. This is a franchise that by the time Living Daylights rolled around, it was its 17th movie. It needed variety. It needed changing. And what they did with Dalton, they really brought it back to the Ian Fleming roots of the character, the dark, cold-blooded killer. It's fantastic. It still keeps some of that 80s cheese, but it's in no way compared to what Roger Moore had. Timothy Dalton had the best series of movies because there isn't a bad movie or a disappointing movie in there.
And time. All right, Henry, over to you for your 1 minute opening. Joe spent time to slander every single Bond. Which of the slandered Bonds did you choose?
Woo! All right, so the question is, which of the 6 Bond actors had the best series of film? Remember, best series of film. I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to go with a Bond actor who has 2 okay movies versus someone who has 3 amazing movies and 2 really good movies. I went with Daniel Craig. You have Casino Royale, Skyfall, and No Time to Die. Casino Royale and Skyfall are arguably the top 3 of any Bond list that you're going to find. Not because of recency bias, just because they are the best. You mentioned that Timothy Dalton brings the darkness era of the Fleming books. Well, guess what? That is the epitome of what the Craig era is. But they also don't shy away from fun, sexiness, action, but also a lot of chemistry with the characters. The Craig era showcases a full arc from Casino Royale all the way down to No Time to Die. The Dalton ones are fine. Yeah, sure, you can get away with saying there are no bad films, but guess what? There are also no great films. So you can't have a best of the series with no great films. Whereas mine, you have 3 amazing films and 2 really good ones. Craig is the easy answer.
And time. All right, we have Timothy Dalton versus Daniel Craig. Joe, back over to you for the defense of Dalton.
When people talk about Daniel Craig, they talk about how he brought the grittiness back to Bond, but Dalton did it first. You know, after Moore's fun and cheesy run, Bond was brought back down to earth in 2 movies that really showed how ruthless Bond can be. The plots are thrilling. The scores by John Barry and Michael Kamen, respectively, are fantastic. And the key thing, Dalton does not have a bad Bond movie to his name. Living Daylights is great. License to Kill is great. Quantum of Solace is a bad movie. Spectre is a convoluted bad movie. It's not as bad as Quantum of Solace. It's middle-ranking Bond, but it's not great. It's not even really good. It gets convoluted. What makes a Bond movie? You have memorable villains. And I think what Robert Davi and Jerry on Crab bring to their respective movies, they're memorable. There's memorable action sequences. You have a full sequence on a plane in Living Daylights with Timothy Dalton hanging outside of a plane. You have License to Kill, which was a complete departure from anything Bond had done before. This was Bond going rogue. This was Bond going on a revenge mission. It was, at the time, the highest rated Bond movie in terms of, like PG-13, all that sort of stuff. It was the highest rated because it took it to a different level. And what it does really well. It hit that 80s sensibilities of the drug cartels and all this stuff that we're sort of getting in the 80s, but it gave it that Bond feel. Timothy Dalton gives fantastic performances. Both movies are directed superbly. You have all the Bond classics of going to these exotic locations and meeting these new people and these exotic characters. You've got Felix Leiter, of course, being there as always. The thing about these movies is that they are fantastic. And the more Bond is going on, the more Bond is continuing. I think the more people are going back and watching Timothy Dalton's movies and realizing just how great they were and how disappointing it was that we did not get a third entry just because of the gap between License to Kill and GoldenEye. What Timothy Dalton brings to it is fantastic, but also what the director and the composer and everybody working on those movies brought to it is fantastic. With what Daniel Craig is, you have a great movie and you have a not so good movie, and that's where Craig is let down. So why he came back for No Time to Die was because Spectre was so disappointing.
All right, that will be time on your 2 minutes. Henry, over to you.
All right, so I want to reiterate, you did an interesting tactic picking a series of films that technically has no bad ones, but I want to also reiterate you don't have any great ones. Living Daylights is fine. It's a story where Bond kind of feels sorry for a girl and he doesn't shoot her and do the assassination, and they develop, quote unquote, develop this relationship. But there's no chemistry between the two because Dalton is stiff. He's one-noted. He doesn't provide any gravitas, any suaveness that you want from a Bond. Sure, you want that darkness, but guess what? Craig provides the darkness in the series, but he also provides the suave and the sexiness as well that Dalton just doesn't portray. And in License to Kill, you said it has the whole rogue thing, and that's fine. But guess what? The entirety of the Craig series in Quantum of Solace, he kind of has his own scenario where he does the same exact thing. So it's kind of a done better situation. Quantum of Solace. You say Quantum of Solace is bad, but guess what? It's a direct follow up to what happened in Casino Royale and all the result of what happened with the Vesper situation. So it's going to be a little bit of dreary because guess what? When you're Bond and you have a license to kill and you are supposed to be, someone who's a secret agent and you don't actually open up emotionally, but you finally do, and then you get your heart ripped from your soul, of course you're going to be a little dark and dreary and you're not going to be as hopeful. And that's why I said the Craig series has a full arc. It starts with Casino Royale, which is fantastic, in Le Chiffre, everything with the poker scenes, every scene when you think of, you have the opening scene where he catches the gun and he throws at that chase. You have the scene when he gets poisoned and he puts the thing in him. You have the relationship that starts off with Felix Leiter in Casino Royale that carries over into all the films. The relationship between Felix Leiter and Bond in the Craig series is way better than you get in the two movies in Dalton. And Dalton actually attends Leiter's wedding in License to Kill that you just don't even care about because that relationship is not established, because they do this weird thing where it kind of carries over some of the plot lines from the previous Bonds. Like they low key mention, oh, he was married before, which that Lazenby thing, we're going to bring that up. So that's unfortunate, but you don't actually have any full development for the character because you don't actually care about Dalton's Bond, both because he's stiff and he's one-noted, but also just from the writing. Whereas in Craig, you have a full arc, and you said you bring in No Time to Die, but you bring in No Time to Die not because Spectre's bad, but because you have a full arc to a story, and that's why Craig's
and time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. Time starts when you begin speaking.
You talk about the full arc to the story. I'm sorry. You look at the end of Spectre, where Bond leaves MI6 and drives off into the sunset with Madeline. That was supposed to be Craig's ending. There's a documentary, Being James Bond, featuring Barbara Broccoli and Daniel Craig, where they openly admit that Quantum of Solace was a disappointment. It was a disappointment. Yes, it had the writer's strike to its name, and all they had written was the action sequences. They had to throw in a weak-ass plot because they had to make it work. And that's and they say that's the reason Craig had to come back for No Time to Die, because Spectre was a disappointment. They felt they hadn't closed the arcs off properly as they intended to. In retrospect, they had to make the changes. They had to make those changes because those movies were disappointed. And that's from Broccoli and Craig's own mouths.
Yeah, they're going to say things like that all the time because of reception. Because guess what? When you have Casino Royale, that is one of the greatest movies of all time, and then it follows up, a movie can be not as good and still be a good movie, but it's hold up to the expectation you're expecting. Guess what? A lot of people go back nowadays and watch The Phantom Menace. They're like, oh, that's not that bad. It's just not what I was expecting. Sometimes that's what's going to happen. So they're going to say that movies like Rocky V are going to be not as beloved just because it's not what everyone was expecting. So like I said, you have the full arc of the Daniel Craig movies. You have Casino Royale that starts from scratch. You actually get his actually showcases his License to Kill in his very first thing. It showcases that he's not that great, and it really builds up to it. And then it has the full arc by the end when he has the Madeline stuff. Without Spectre, you don't have that Madeline relationship. Guess what? You didn't see a single dry eye in the theaters in No Time to Die after what happened with Craig, both from his demise, but also from the revelation that he has a child. Because guess what? We love that character. You could randomly pop in a child from the Dalton ones, and you don't care. Because you're like, I feel like I don't know this guy, so I know that he definitely doesn't know that child. It's just not as interesting, not as engaging, and you just don't care.
The thing is, no one's talking. I'm not talking about the good ones, because no one's going to deny that Casino, Skyfall, and No Time to Die aren't great movies. But the issue is, it's about the best set of movies. And when you've got an arc that is convoluted and driven, and look, it was Quantum, and then they changed it to Spectre because they got the rights back. That's the thing. The entirety of Craig's franchise, unfortunately, was met with legal issues, and unfortunately they had to put the twists and turns and the convolutions. Spectre is a movie that wastes Christoph Waltz of all people. It wastes one of the greatest actors of the modern era. Matthew
It's not
Allmerich
true.
Allmerich is a forgettable villain. No one remembers Matthew Allmerich as in Quantum of Solace.
The dynamic between Blofeld and Bond is fantastic because the chemistry of the two actors. Sure, if the writing's not as good, that it's going to be fine. But guess what? That is the epitome of your two movies. The writings are decent. It's flat. It doesn't really stand out. So guess what? If you're going to have a mind with 5 movies, you have 2 that are decent and 3 that are amazing. Guess what? The percentage is still better. If you have 2 that are decent but 0 that are amazing, I would rather have my 5 as a whole story because it just doesn't stand out. I love how you said I don't want to mention Casino Royale, Skyfall, No Time to Die because guess what? Those are amazing. Those are the top tier Bond movies, and it's one of those things that
best set.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
You have to view it as a whole.
Yeah, but guess what? If you have math and you do the averages, it's going to weigh out. If you have math and you do the average, it's going to weigh out, and it's still a better set. Say those are all 10s and the others are 7s. It still averages out to an 8. Say both of yours are 7s. Sure, there's 0 5s, but there's still 7s. It is still a better set, and it's also a better arc and series. I would rather go back and watch the entire 5 Craig movies, and Quantum of Solace is actually really good. It's actually underrated. The opening scene is fantastic with honestly mirrors the opening of both Casino Royale and Skyfall just for the action because guess what? Daniel Craig is still younger at that point. He still can really bring it. The opening sequence is good. It also has all the emotion of dealing with the leftover, what happened with Vesper. It also finishes that circle too when he handles Vesper's boyfriend and all that stuff. So it really showcases everything that you got from this Craig movie. You don't care about Timothy Dalton's character, and no one was clamoring for him to come back.
The emotionality of the loss of Felix, like the injury to Felix Leiter and the death of his wife, it's what drives Timothy Dalton throughout that movie. Quantum of Solace, like I said, it has great action sequences, but the plot is what brings it down. Spectre, by bringing in Blofeld as his half brother and bringing all this stuff and trying to bring this stuff back and make Spectre connect with Quantum and make Le Chiffre a member of Spectre. None of that was prevalent. The thing is, it's
that's
all
been something that's been doing the entire Bond franchise. Blofeld and Spectre covers the entire thing. That's part of the entire 25 movies that you have in Bond. That's not just in this series. So trying to say that calls that as a negative, that means you're kind of knocking the entire series of Bond, and that is just that is just not a good idea. It's not
negative on the whole series. It's negative specifically on the decisions they made in those movies. They kept trying to bring it back and make it fit, and it didn't work.
Blofeld and Spectre is the end all be all.
And time. All right, heated back and forth there. We're going to go into the 1-minute closings. Joe, you're up first with Mr. Dalton. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Question was who had the best set of movies, not who has the best movies. With the exception of Lazenby, Dalton is the only Bond actor that doesn't have a bad movie to his name, and both his movies are great movies. You have fantastic action sequences, Dalton hanging off the plane in Living Daylights, the tanker truck sequence in License to Kill, fantastic sequences. He brings that emotionality in License to Kill, that revenge aspect. You can see it throughout him, what drives him to take down Robert Davi's Franz Sanchez. Craig has amazing movies, but tucked in between every great movie is a poor, weak attempt. Living Daylights and License to Kill are fantastic movies, both very different from each other and what came before. The problem with Craig is his second and fourth movie, both of which fail to live up to in expectations and frequently find themselves in the bottom half of Bond movie rankings. As years have gone by, more and more people are going back to Dalton's movies and seeing how good they are. But the most important thing here is that even those involved agree that Quantum of Solace and Spectre were disappointments. You talk about having the best, and that's what pushes them above the edge. But you look at football. Look at teams like Manchester United. They have Cristiano Ronaldo. What do they win? They don't win anything. You look at Argentina. They have Lionel Messi. When was the last time Argentina won the World Cup? You can't go just based on your best players. You have to take the team as a whole, and that's what Dalton pushes above Craig, because it takes the movies as a whole, both together. Fantastic movies, fantastic performance, fantastic direction, and they have the better Bond songs.
All right, Henry, back over to you for the final minute.
I respect your tactic of saying that yours has no bad movies and mine has 2 bad movies, but let's do a little bit of math. Casino Royale, Skyfall, No Time to Die. Say they're 10 out of 10s, and I'll even meet you in the middle, and I'll allow you to say that Quantum of Solace and Spectre are 5 out of 10s. Guess what? The average of that series is still an 8. Your movies are 7s at best, and you haven't proved me otherwise. So guess what? The average of 2 7s is still 7. So I would rather have 5 movies where the series as a whole is an 8, where yours is a 7. Like I said, it has the full arc of the entire story. You build up Bond from his very first mission, becoming a 00 and getting his license to kill to his actual death. In the Dalton movies, you have a awkward relationship in the movie that, guess what, it doesn't even carry over to the second film, so you don't even have that emotional revelation in a License to Kill. And then you build up Sanchez, who's just a forgettable villain. In mine, you have Lashith that you're going to remember, you have Silva, you have Blofeld, you have Safin, and guess what? Green, he's pretty much the same thing as Sanchez in License to Kill. So you have 4 memorable villains and one that is pretty much the same as yours. So if you're going to say that mine's bad, that means you're also saying that yours is bad. I would rather have the 5 Daniel Craig movies that has a full circle storyline than your 2 that are just throwaways and very forgettable.
And time. All right, guys. Excellent job. I'm going to go ahead and bring the timer down and let you guys chill out in the back while we bring our judges in to make the decisions. So the only thing that I was really fact checking, because again, in terms of everything Bond, you guys know what you're on. You guys were talking about all the right things there. Is it kept coming up in terms of basically, where do people rank these films? What's their placement? Where's their ranking? And so I decided to go to a couple of different sites and start checking where do people actually rank the Bond films. I was actually rather curious. And it turns out that there is almost zero consistency within the franchise in terms of where people think about them. So I have a couple different publications here just for curiosity's sake. I went to The Independent, which was the only major UK publication I could find that had published a list. To reference the films important to this debate, they had Spectre at 23rd, License to Kill at 18th, surprisingly Skyfall at 17th, Quantum of Solace at 11th, Casino Royale at 8th, and The Living Daylights is the highest of this list at 4th. Slash Film, which is an American film website, ranked Spectre 17th, Quantum of Solace 16th, The Living Daylights 14th, License to Kill 13th, Skyfall 3rd, Casino Royale 1st. It's worth noting that both Slash Film and Independence lists were released prior to No Time to Die's release, so that film could not be included. With that said, Vulture, which is another American publication, did release a list after No Time to Die came out. They ranked License to Kill 24th, Quantum of Solace 23rd, Spectre 17th, No Time to Die 16th, Living Daylights 14th, Skyfall 7th, and Casino Royale 1st. And then to use the all-time aggregator of film reviews, Rotten Tomatoes, Spectre is 18th, Quantum of Solace is 16th, Living Daylights is 12th, License to Kill is 11th, No Time to Die is 8th, Skyfall's 5th, and Casino Royale is 4th. In fact, while reading these lists, interestingly enough, because we brought them up before the debate started, the only piece of consistency is George Lazenby's film. In the Independence list, he's 3rd. In Slash Film, he's 4th. In Vulture, he is 3rd. And in Rotten Tomatoes, he comes 9th. But all of those films in that top 10 have an above 80% like rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So that's basically the general consensus is his film is actually good. In terms of everything else, it is a little scattered as to where it falls. But that's just the fun research that I did. What were the points made in the match? Kevin, I go to you first. Who gets your vote and what sold you?
So this was a tough one. I don't know that much about James Bond, so I had to go by what they gave me. Both great arguments, but Joe started off really hot with giving me really good detail in the action scene with the plane, but Henry came in really strong with the Daniel Craig stuff, and I got way more out of Henry. Talking about how the full art description, the relationship from how he starts off at the beginning, you get a beginning to end story. So I had to go with Henry in this round.
All right. So we have a first vote to Henry. Noah, I go down to you. Who gets your vote and what was the main point that sold you?
This was a really tough one. I only just picked someone when Kevin started talking. It was really hard. Henry's argument about like doing all the math kind of didn't work for me. Sorry, Henry. I had to go for Joe on this one because of all the points that he made about like it was the first kind of one to bring that grittiness, that seriousness to Bond. He's saying stuff about the score, like interesting plots. They had good villains. He said the Daniel Craig movies had convoluted plots in some of them. They were supposed to end at a certain movie, and some of the movies were just really disappointing. And he basically didn't have any bad ones, and they were great movies. But all in all, it was really difficult debate, but I'm going to say Joe.
All right. So once again, it is a 1-to-1 split. Spaceman, you're the deciding factor on this one. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Basically, Kevin said everything for me. He was my spokesperson. I was going to say I'll echo all of those things he said. So for that, I went with Henry.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back and keep this match rolling as we bring the competitors back in and move on to question number 3, which is in light of this franchise returning later this year, including featuring a director making their directorial debut on it, Creed 3 releases later this year, of course, with Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut on it. And while the general consensus around the Creed films, I feel, is most people feel those are pretty solid entries in the Rocky franchise, when it comes to the original sequels to the first film, there's a pretty mixed reception. There's the ones people tend to like, there's the ones people tend to hate, but even with those, it's not 100% certain as to, oh, you will hate this one or you will like this one. So it's worth debating. The question is, what is the best of the original 5 Rocky sequels? There are 5 films on the table, 2, 3, 4, 5, or Balboa. They could have picked one, and they are arguing for that. Henry, you are back up first on this question, so I will bring in the timer, and it will start ticking when you begin speaking.
All right, so when you hear this question, what is the best of the 5 original Rocky sequels, you got to think of what makes my movie the best of the sequels, and that is Rocky 3. And the reason that this one is the best one is because it has Rocky at the height of his powers by the end of the movie, winning the championship against Clubber Lang. But before that, it leads up with a lot of emotion. This is the most emotional of the entire series, but it also is a lot of fun. So it is not dreary, it's not boring, and it's also not sad. It has the full scope of the entire thing. The relationship between Apollo Creed and Rocky as best friends that we eventually carry over to 4 with Apollo's unfortunate demise starts off really in 3 when they go over to Los Angeles and they start to train together. It's one of those things where this movie has everything. It has Hulk Hogan's character as Thunder Lips. That's a lot of fun. That shows you the levity of what happens when you're a champion, that you do these exhibitions and these bouts. Rocky is starting to get coast a little bit and has the fantastic scene that I'm going to talk later on the beach, which has Adrian at the height of her powers as a character. Rocky 3 has everything that you want from a Rocky movie. Not only is it the best of the sequels, it is also the best of the entire franchise. Rocky 3, baby.
And time. All right, Joe, over to you. Which sequel did you pick? Time starts when you begin speaking.
So Rocky may still be the greatest sports movie ever made. After 46 years, it remains one of the movies that, on reflection, deserved its Best Picture win. In the years that followed, we saw a bit of a diminishing return in terms of sequels. Not greatly, but noticeably enough. But Rocky 2 is easily the best Rocky sequel. Sylvester Stallone's second foray into directing, first foray into directing a Rocky movie, and it probably gave him the chance to take the character and world that he created and show the world his vision. The underdog story is a classic, and having Rocky lose the fight at the end of Rocky was a masterful character choice. But when it comes to the sequel, it's not just about the redemption of the character, it's also a reflection of Sly's journey with Rocky, and not just the character, but the original movie, Rocky. No matter how many times he lost, he picked himself up, back up, and he got the victory he deserved. Happens to Rocky at the end of this movie, and it's a perfect allegory for the story of Sylvester Stallone and trying to get Rocky made in the first place. Despite you have all the other character choices are done in, Adrian is the relationship between Adrian at top in this movie.
And time. All right, it is Rocky 2 versus Rocky 3. Henry, back over to you. 2 minutes.
I love how you said that Rocky 2 is a reflection of Rocky 1. In fact, it's a carbon copy of the film, except for the fact that at that point he's already an established character and then he wins by the end. That's really the only difference. It's a movie that takes too long to really get into it, and for Rocky to find out who he is, it's a movie that doesn't understand its identity. At the beginning of the movie, it sets it up like he's going to retire, but spoiler, we go plenty of movies after the fact where he doesn't do that. It's one of those, like you said, it is in fact Stallone's first direction of the Rocky film, and it shows. He doesn't necessarily know what he wants to do with the camera. He doesn't necessarily know when to handle the edits and all that stuff. In Rocky 3, it's quick, it's snappy, but guess what? It also has a lot of emotion. Like I said on the scene with the beach with Adrian, that is the best monologue probably of the entire 80s, let alone from the Rocky franchise. Adrian, Talia Shire's performance as Adrian in this movie is fantastic. The fact that this movie showcases something that you just don't see in movies in general, let alone in the 80s, of toxic masculinity. Guess what? Why is Rocky losing? Because he's afraid. And that's Sylvester Stallone admitting that fact. The relationship between Adrian as well as Apollo. It really showcased in here that they both have his back, and they're going to do whatever it takes to support him. Because guess what? Clubber Lang, he has the quote unquote eye of the tiger. When you think of the Rocky franchise, eye of the tiger is one of the things you think of, and that song was created for this movie because that epitomizes the entire concept of what Rocky needs. Because guess what? In the first one, his whole goal was just to go the distance. So he had that eye of the tiger. He lost that he got that in the second one. But guess what? He beats Apollo in the second one. But guess what? Apollo retires immediately after, so he didn't get him at his peak. He loses to Clubber Lang in the third one because he didn't have the eye of the tiger. But then he beats him at the peak of his career, and he does it in 3 rounds. It's one of those things where Rocky is a fantastic boxer. This is the best boxing of Sylvester Stallone's movie career within these films. It has the best cinematography and the best showcasing of the fighting scenes. It's one of those that encapsulates everything that you want from a Rocky movie. And like I said, it's one of those things for me personally, it goes back and forth with the first one. So even if it's not number 1, it's number 1A, 1B, because Rocky 3 is fantastic. It is the best of the sequels, and Rocky 2 is just a retread of Rocky 1 that doesn't have the heart, the emotion, or the fun.
And time. All right, Joe, back over to you. Time starts when you speak.
Look, Rocky 3 is a fun movie, but that's it. The inclusion of Hulk Hogan and Mr. T, taking it deep into the world of big Hollywood, it falls into that typical 80s trap of that we have to go for the big show, we have to go for the big guns, the big guns. But that's not what made Rocky successful. What made Rocky successful was its deep, personal, almost independent film feel to it. You know, Rocky 2 is a deeper, more personal movie. Like its predecessor, it's personal to its creator, a reflection and a metaphor for the life of Sly Stallone. Both movies are great, but the greatness of Rocky 3 is surface level, and it relies on its big guest stars to make it more memorable. The difference with Rocky 2 is that it keeps the spirit of the original, but delves deeper into the character and reflects the personal victory Sly achieved when Rocky was made. You know, you say it takes a long time to get into it, but it's not that you mean it takes a long time to get into the fight, because that's what Rocky 3 is about. It's about the big sequences. It's about the wrestling boxing match with Hulk Hogan. It's about, you know, then the reason he loses to Clubber Lang is not because of all this other stuff. It's because they need to have a story. You know, they completed the story with Rocky. They completed the story with Rocky 2. They got him his victory, and that's what Rocky 2 was about. It was about showing this character who had gone the distance. He had gone the distance, and he was going to make a name for himself, and he's given that next chance. With Rocky 3, it's just about bringing him back down and bringing him back up again. It's the same thing that happens in Rocky 4. You bring him down, you bring him back up again. But with Rocky 2, he's already at a top level. You see the way he reacts at the end of Rocky when he goes the distance. He doesn't win, but he goes the distance. You see that reaction. It's about carrying on that story, about seeing where you can go from there. But Rocky 3, like every sequel since it's about bringing him down and bringing him back up. It's not interesting. That's why you have to have Hulk Hogan and Mr. T in there, because you have to make it more interesting. You have to make it more showy, and that's the problem. Rocky, at its heart, was an independent movie. It was a personal movie, and it became more showy, more Hollywood, and it fell into that 80s trap, which is exactly what Eye of the Tiger is. It's putting it in that 80s trap of having to give it a big showy song, and this is what it is. It's surface level. It's not a great movie. It's a fun movie, but it's not a great movie. I'm going to concede this 10 seconds.
Sorry, my headphones died, but the 10 seconds are up anyways. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and go into the 4-minute open debate round. The timer will start when the first person speaks.
I love your tactics of acting like Rocky 3 is only quote unquote fun because it's showy. Guess what? Rocky 1 is exactly that with Apollo. That's very consistent with the entire series. Apollo Creed's character is showy and stuff. So that's just part of the industry. You have the entertainment aspect of the exhibition with Thunder Lips and the thing. Guess what? When you get success, initially he was a known name that they found in a book who was doing a bunch of underground fights for $30 a pop. So eventually when he's championing and he's going through all these things, guess what? He had 10 title defenses. And I haven't even brought up Mickey yet. Mickey not only dies in this, so it has an emotion, but it also has a relationship that builds up where he wants his back. He really loves and cares for Rocky, that it just doesn't have the same effect in Rocky 2 because it's just a retread of Rocky 1. Your movie is okay, but it's thrown away because everything that you think of Rocky 2, you were like, oh yeah, I'd rather have that version of it from Rocky 1.
It's not that though, because you have to look at the emotionality within Rocky 2. You have the storyline with Adrian and her becoming pregnant and her falling into a coma, and that's the thing. You even look at Rocky after that first fight with Apollo Creed. You know, they talk about his blindness, but no, they throw that away in the other movies because otherwise we wouldn't have a movie, because basically he really can't fight again. You know, you can't dismiss Rocky 2 as a rehash where just because it's different, only different because Rocky wins, because Rocky is about Balboa's second chance, and Rocky 2 is about the path this leads him down and the effect on those closest to him.
Yeah, but it has I love that you brought up the mention of him going blind and throws it away, because like I said at the beginning, this is a movie where Stallone's had the direction. He was just unsure of what he wanted to do with this film. He didn't have an idea. Whereas in Rocky 3, it has the full scope of everything you want. It has the fighting, it has the boxing, it has the defending of the title, it has Clubber Lang at the peak, because you have that person that's going to defend you. And it's unfortunately that we didn't get the quote unquote peak Sylvester Stallone as Rocky versus Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed, but you get close to that with Rocky versus Clubber Lang, and you also have the support of Apollo Creed, because that's why he loses. Not because you need a little bit more film, it's because he didn't have the eye of the tiger. Then you build up the support. You go to LA and you train with Apollo Creed in there, and he actually learns technique that he never had before. And that's the difference between Rockies 2 and 1. Even is this movie has everything that you want from a Rocky movie.
But I think about a movie, sometimes you need to have something deeper. And even you just look at Apollo himself. Apollo, he's real. He's not a villain. He's a rival in Rocky 2. Clubber Lang is cartoonish. He's a cartoonish villain. Rocky 3 is an example of where the series went wrong, with the nuanced, weighted drama being sacrificed for spectacle. And that's basically it. Rocky 2 is a perfect example of where Rocky was successful for Sylvester Stallone. He tried so hard to get this movie made, and he kept getting turned down, he kept losing, and then he finally came up and he went the distance like he did in Rocky, but this time the movie was made and it won Best Picture. So it was about him not only going the distance, but this time finally getting his win. It's that personal, and it reflects and it oozes in what Sylvester Stallone chooses to put on that screen. It's that joy of that victory, that joy of winning Best Picture, of something that he was struggling to get made for years.
I love how every time you try and describe Rocky 2, you're bringing up a lot of stuff that carries over from Rocky 1, and that's kind of my point. Rocky 2 is just a retread, except for at the end.
It's a sequel. You have to have things carry over.
And then you have the part of where you mentioned the Adrian thing, which sure, that's a little bit of emotion there, but guess what? By the time she wakes up, all she says is win. You don't have any actual great acting, any moments from them from chemistry wise, but also the writing. It's stale. It doesn't have the gravitas that you have in Rocky 3. Like I said, the scene on the beach, not only does it have Sylvester Stallone, which you keep mentioning Rocky 2 is pretty much his real life. Rocky 3 is him finally admitting to the world that he's afraid to fail. It's the first time he ever says that. And the back and forth between him and Adrian, the monologue that Talia Shire has in that is fantastic. It's bone chilling. She really stands out. In Rocky 2, she's one noted, and you literally need to put her into a coma to quote unquote give inspiration. In Rocky 3, she actually has something to say. She has a voice. But you also have the Mickey's death. So you say that mine's all just flashy and no emotion. Mickey literally dies in Rocky 3, and you also have the heartfelt moment of Rocky admitting that he has toxic masculinity and he's afraid, and you have Talia Shire's Adrian having that showy,
that's the issue. Where do we go next? You gave Rocky the emotionality with putting Adrian in danger with a child inside her at that same point. So where do you go in Rocky 3? Oh, I guess we have to kill someone off now. It's a by the numbers sequel. Let's kill off someone from the main movie. Let's make it more showy. And that's the problem. It loses that personal feel, despite the fact you have Mickey's death. You still lose that personal touch to it because of the showiness
and time
that it brings. Yeah, it's midnight. Whatever.
All good. You have the briefest of moments to get your words together, because Henry, you are up first for the closing minute when you start speaking.
All right. So Rocky 3 has everything you want. Paulie in this movie actually starts to get fleshed out a little bit too, because he's dealing with all the repercussions of just being put in the back and his jealousy, but he also finally gets a job, and the relationship between Rocky and Paulie is fantastic. The relationship between Rocky and Mickey is fantastic, where it showcases that Mickey really cares about him. Mickey moved into the house, and he's really, a full-fledged trainer. In the first one, he avoids training Rocky because he's a bum and he's a thumb breaker. And then the second one, at that point, they're just only going for the one fight. In the third one, they're going for 10 title defenses, and then they're finally talking about fighting Clubber Lang, who at the point is the #1 contender. He's not just a villain; he's a fantastic boxer and a fighter who really brings the show. So once he loses to Clubber Lang, it's because he didn't have the eye of tiger, which is the theme not only of Rocky 3 but the entire franchise. It's one of the things that when you think of the Rocky franchise, you think of the eye of tiger, because it's a perfect theme for the entire thing. You have the Adrian sequence of back and forth of her fantastic support, but you also have the love and relationship of the friendship between Rocky and Apollo that carries over into Rocky 4, and that's why you're crying with Apollo's death in 4, because of what was established in Rocky 3.
And time. All right, Joe, one final minute on the clock for you, sir, when you start speaking.
While the later films would introduce exterior threats, Rocky 2 retained the original film's stakes and questioned them in a logical way. What happens when an underdog becomes an icon? And how does an arrogant celebrity cope with being overshadowed by a beloved new public favorite? That's the story of Rocky 2. But Rocky 2 equally considers the perspectives of both Rocky and Apollo Creed and develops the ramifications of the original film's ending rather than exploiting it. That's the difference. Rocky 3 is an exploitation. It brings in these big showy characters, these big showy songs, and it loses that personal touch, that deeper feel, that independent movie feel that the original Rocky had to it. At its heart, Rocky 2 is a metaphor. It's well documented how many studios passed on Rocky unless Sly dropped out of starring, but he kept going and it won Best Picture. The joy and triumph of that is present on screen in Rocky 2. You know, they even destroy the character by saying Paulie admitted he set up those 10 fights. So even those 10 title defenses don't become relevant. Paulie becomes a caricature and cartoonish, just like Mr. T. The joy and triumph is present on screen in Rocky 2. Yo, Adrian, I did it indeed.
All right, and that is time on another good debate, guys. I'm going to go ahead and send you to the back while I bring in our judges for the decision making. Once again, not a lot of crazy things that need to be checked. These guys are pretty on top of it. In terms of facts, Rocky 2 was in fact the second directorial effort from Sylvester Stallone. It was also the fourth screenplay that he had written. His directorial debut came the previous year on the film Paradise Alley. Eye of the Tiger was in fact made for Rocky 3. Originally, Sylvester Stallone wanted to use Another One Bites the Dust by Queen as the theme song for the film. However, Queen did not grant him permission to do so, and thus it was instead moved on to going to Survivor and having Eye of the Tiger written. Now, in terms of discussing what is viewed as the best, I decided to use two different sites just because I was curious, and I found that both of these sites actually come to the exact same consensus. Obviously, of the original 6 films, Rocky is traditionally viewed as the best. However, through both Rotten Tomatoes, which is an aggregator of critic reviews, and the percentage that you see is a like rating, basically this percentage of people like the film, and on Metacritic, which takes the scores that the critics submit 1 to 100 and aggregates them into a final score, the consensus is actually identical. Rocky is considered the best, followed by Rocky Balboa, and then 2 and 3, both of which are very, very close together. Then there's a very sizable gap before we get to 4 and 5. But with that said, it is about the facts that were listed in the match. So, Noah, I go to you first, sir. Who gets your vote, and what was the main thing that sold you? And you're still muted.
Joe
had to be the one in the title match. Thank you, sir.
Joe had the really good point that Rocky 3 is fun, but that's about it. And it's very surface level, but then he kept just reiterating the same points. It's a perfect allegory for Sylvester Stallone. It's big and showy. It has a personal and indie feel, and that Rocky 3 is a by the number sequel. But I feel like Henry gets my point because he was able to combat that main point against it, that it was fun. And that's about it with the emotion that Adrian brings. And I can't remember who the character that dies, but the scene where on the beach, Henry really hammered that home, and he said that it was Sly's unsure direction in Rocky 2, and the Eye of the Tiger theme is really important in Rocky 3, so Henry gets it.
All right. Alan, I go to you next, sir. You get your vote. What was the main thing?
Well, this time, my man over here, I echo everything he said. Yeah. Henry really argued well, Rocky 3, and it kind of brought back everything that film does really well. Rocky 2, Joe really kind of nailed what made that film great as well. But Henry hit him a little bit too hard on that. It was a lot of retread of Rocky. So I went with Henry.
All right. Judges, thank you guys so much. Go ahead and send you to the back as we move on to the next question. As we get into question number 4 of the main round, and this is a title match. This is the one of the biggest matches we will ever have in Movie Battleground is obviously a title match, and so I decided that worthy of a title match is one of the biggest questions in film of all time. This is related to something that is highly, highly discussed amongst all film fans everywhere, and it is time to settle on a definitive answer. The question is, what is the best Star Wars film of all time? It's a franchise that is embroiled in all sorts of controversy. However, let's settle it today because we are the most official source for what is correct. What is the best Star Wars film? Joe, you are up first on this question, so I will go ahead and bring up the timer for you, and it will start once you begin speaking, sir.
As Aaron said, it's a question that's been dominating pop culture since, well, 1980. What is the best Star Wars movie? Now, most people would think that this question was answered in 1980, but in fact, it was answered in 1983. Return of the Jedi is the best Star Wars movie. We've seen numerous trilogies throughout the years, The Hobbit, the original X-Men, The Godfather, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, The Hangover, Blade. All these trilogies failed to stick their landings, but Return of the Jedi sticks that landing, and it does it in style. Plot resolution, stakes increasing, big battles, score, it has it all. Return of the Jedi is a masterclass in how to stick a landing, how to end a story, because at this time, this was the end of the story. And not only does it end the story that started in A New Hope, it ends the story that began in The Phantom Menace, and it ends it perfectly. Return of the Jedi is a movie that's not only the best Star Wars movie, it's the best Star Wars movie when you consider the saga as a whole. With everything that's come since Return of the Jedi released, Return of the Jedi only increases in quality. It is a fantastic movie that's so often overlooked because...
And time. All right, Henry, over to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Well, luckily for me, my movie has never been overlooked because it is the exact answer of what is the best Star Wars film. It is The Empire Strikes Back. When you think of Star Wars, you think of the Imperial March, Empire Strikes Back. You think of Do or Do Not, There Is No Try, Empire Strikes Back. You think of No, I Am Your Father, Empire Strikes Back. The relationships between Han, Luke, Leia, the introduction of Yoda, the revelation and the biggest twist of all time with Vader and Luke, the I Am Your Father scene. It's one of the things that it just encapsulates everything that we love about Star Wars. It has the battles, it has the intimacy, it has the opening sequence on Hoth is fantastic. It really showcases the ability to, really be in the space battle, but also not having to just solely be in space battle. It expands the world and everything. It's referenced when you think of movies like Deadpool, right on a bitch's back, like Yoda. Oh, Star Wars, no, Empire. When you think of in Civil War, that really old movie. How old is kid? He's referencing The Empire Strikes Back. It's one of those things that if you say Empire, we're talking about The Empire Strikes Back because it's not only the best movie in this franchise, it is one of the best of all time.
And time. All right, Joe, back over to you. 2 minutes on the clock.
Return of the Jedi was already an amazing ending to the original trilogy, but following Anakin's story from the prequels, it fits even better as a perfect ending. The way Luke and Vader's stories connect and intertwine is masterful. Luke's arc is perfectly concluded. That final fight where Luke gives in to the dark side, only turning back when he sees his father's metal arm, looks down at his own metal hand, and sees the path he's going down. It's the most subtle you'll ever get in a Star Wars movie, and it's perfect. Leia becomes the badass leader we all knew she could be. Ian McDiarmid is an incomparable addition to the franchise. The balance of the three simultaneous battles on Endor, in space, and aboard the Death Star is masterful. John Williams creates an entirely different kind of score with this movie, with the Emperor's theme and the Emperor's arrival at the Death Star. It's a more subtle theme than the Imperial March. It begins with the Imperial March, but it's much more subtle and in the background and constantly looming, just like the Emperor is. It's a perfect encapsulation of score. Richard Marquand directed a fantastic, fantastic movie. You have certainly different examples of where this story can go. It concludes not only Luke, Han, and Leia's and Vader's storylines, it also concludes some of the side characters' storylines in a perfect way. Star Wars middle movies or beginning movies have always been very good at introducing questions and introducing theories and questions and places where the story can go. But to end those so perfectly, asking questions is something that's always been a relatively simple thing to do in a movie, but to answer them in a satisfying and meaningful way, I think is much more impactful. And to close so many different characters' arcs in a satisfying way and do it in a way that's entertaining and enthralling, and there's no drag in the story, I think it's an absolutely masterful thing to do. And it's still the best thing we've got in terms of ending a trilogy, in terms of not just Star Wars, but any movie. And it's not just about the fact that it sticks the landing, it's the fact that contained within that sticking the landing is a fantastic, enjoyable, thrilling, entertaining movie that every aspect of which is just carried out masterfully.
And time. All right, Henry, back over to you. 2 minutes.
So I completely disagree that in Return of the Jedi, there's no waste of time. You have all the Ewok stuff. You have the opening thing in Jabba's palace that has just kind of a mix of themes and genres and kind of tones. It's one of those things where it honestly doesn't know exactly what it wants to do because it wants to have the quote unquote happy ending, and it kind of overdoes the silliness and the kind of low level stakes of the entire thing. Yes, everything, the relationship between Luke and Vader is fantastic, but guess what? That's because it was established in The Empire Strikes Back. It's one of those things that when you watch The Empire Strikes Back from start to finish, you have a film that you can literally clip out and you can just watch it, or you can watch the film on itself. You're not going to clip out many scenes from Return of the Jedi, and it's honestly kind of daunting to go back and watch that. The only time you're really going to go back and rewatch Return of the Jedi is because you're like, well, it is a good ending of this trilogy. If the question was what is the best third film in a trilogy, then sure, I might give you Return of the Jedi, but what is the best film in the Star Wars franchise? And not only is The Empire Strikes Back easily the best film in the Star Wars franchise, it's arguably one of the best movies of all time because of the themes that it hammers home, the effects that still hold up to this day, the score, the iconic Imperial March specifically that started up in this one, and everything that it uses from the first one as well. It carries over. It's the perfect peak of this entire franchise. And guess why it's a peak? Because it's the highest, because it's the best. Everything else will never live up to The Empire Strikes Back because it just can't. It's one of those things that your movie might not be bad, but it'll never touch The Empire Strikes Back because it's one of those things where it's up here. It's untouchable. The Empire Strikes Back it showcases everything of Luke's journey of who he's becoming a Master Jedi. Everything on the Dagobah planet. It's one of those things where he's introducing himself to Yoda, but Yoda's testing immediately when he's messing with his food, when he's like, I can't teach him, and everything. It showcases that you really need to test if you want to be a Master Jedi, and then eventually you do it. And then you have the amazing scene as like, oh, judge me by my size, you not, or how the exact phrasing of it, when he lifts the fighter out of the swamp, because at the end of the day, this one has the most heart, emotion, and overall has everything that you want from a Star Wars film, but also a film in general, not just in the Star Wars franchise. It is the best in the entire franchise.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. Gentlemen, the timer will start when the first competitor speaks.
Of course, you brought up the Ewoks, but let's not forget that these movies are still essentially for kids. It's still supposed to be fun. It's still supposed to be enjoyable. It's still supposed to have things that kids can enjoy. But within that, you still get that emotionality. You get Yoda's death. You get Obi-Wan revealing to Luke about the lies that were told, from a certain point of view. You get that conversation between Luke and Leia on Endor, and Luke saying that he has to go and confront Vader and bring him back. Everything about Luke trying to turn Vader back is fantastic. Empire Strikes Back is a great movie. I'm not going to sit here and say Empire Strikes Back is not a great movie, but what it does is what so many other movies and franchises do. It goes, oh, we'll set this up. Where can we go? Oh, and the audience does love it, and it is great. It's where do they go from here? Where do they go from here? And they still manage to tie it up, and all the character arcs are tied up. And it's not just Luke, Leia. You also get Lando. You look at Lando Calrissian as a character, and look at the way his character differs from Han Solo. And you see that Han Solo in the original, in A New Hope and Empire, he was always constantly trying to run away from the battle. When can he get away from the rebellion? Lando, on the other hand, does the complete opposite. He rescues them in The Empire Strikes Back. And where is he in Return of the Jedi? He is a general. He has stepped up to the plate. Billy Dee Williams is a badass in that movie, and his character pays off from it. They don't have to tie off his character. He's a side character in Empire Strikes Back, but they also be able to tie up his character in that story. It's a fantastic movie that doesn't do a disservice to any of its characters.
So you say that yours ties up a bunch of the knots, and it really does a great job of it. When you have Jabba the Hutt, who's supposed to be this notorious gangster, and he dies just by being choked by Leia. It's kind of unsatisfying. It's not really that great of a character, and it makes me really wonder why he was that menacing to begin with. You have a Boba Fett who was set up to be this amazing badass, but he kind of just goes off and falls. And sure, we get a show 40 years later, but that's neither here nor there. At the time, it doesn't really do all the satisfying stuff that you want. Sure, some of the stuff with our main characters, it caps off and does a good job, and that's fine. But because it sets it up in The Empire Strikes Back, like I said, why do people love Star Wars? Why is Star Wars, if not the number one franchise of all time, it's in the top 3 easily, undoubtable, because of everything that you get in The Empire Strikes Back. You have all the quotes, you have all the action, you have no time wasted, you have everything that you want, you have the set pieces, you have the designs, you have the score, you have the music. Everything in Return of the Jedi just doesn't live up. It doesn't have that. And yeah, I'm gonna knock the Ewoks because you say it's about kids, but guess what? Empire Strikes Back, it has the lovable moments, the jokes, scruffy nerve herder and all that stuff that really sets up, and it can show where you can be lighthearted and lovable.
To say Return of the Jedi doesn't have any of that stuff is completely honest. It has the score. Yours, you may have the Imperial March, but Return of the Jedi, it has the 3 parts of the Battle of Endor. You have the Pit of Carkoon. You have the Emperor's theme, which is much more subtle and dark, which perfectly establishes who the Emperor is. You know, the stakes are higher in Return of the Jedi. You know, this is the last chance for the better in. The Empire is more contained. Empire is more contained, but the scope of Jedi and the fact that it pulls it off is more impressive. Like The Force Awakens, Empire sets things up, it asks questions, and audiences love that. The difference is the Return of the Jedi closes those stories, where The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker failed to do that.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where, of course, Return of the Jedi is going to be a happy ending by the end, because that's just how films work. Empire Strikes Back is, if it's not the first one, it's one of the first movies of all time where the bad guys win, because guess what? It's one of those where it has the balls, and that's why it's the most memorable and it's the most standout. And you know, you just said it perfectly at the very beginning, where it's like, you know, maybe you could even say your movie is the most underrated, or your movie should be talked about more, and that's fair. I'll give you that, but you can never say it's the best, because at this point, no, if you never have anything where it should be or could be if it's the best. It's undoubtedly Empire, because things like you said with the subtlety of the Emperor and everything. Honestly, I would rather prefer the
best lightsaber battle, best score. These are all the things to talk about. It's not just about the showiness of the score; it's about the subtleties, and that's what John Williams creates with the subtleties of the Emperor's theme. You know, you have that emotionality.
But everything in The Empire Strikes Back,
it's literally revelations.
It's a full scale of the epitome of the entire franchise. It's exactly what you want. When you close your eyes and you think Star Wars, you think of The Empire Strikes Back. When you close your eyes and you think of Return of the Jedi, you think of a solid end of a trilogy. It's one of those things.
I close my eyes and I think Return of the Jedi, because Return of the Jedi is the best. It's the best Star Wars movie. It's difficult to close off these things.
If it's your favorite, that's fair. But if you ask 1 million people, 99% of the people is going to say Empire Strikes Back, because that is.
Well, 99% of people.
I do respect you trying.
It's a lot. It's easy to ask questions. It's hard to answer questions.
All right, we're going to go into the 1-minute closings. Joe, you're up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Return of the Jedi is a perfect culmination of story. It does all the things a finale should do, whilst also remaining strongly its own movie, and that's the key here. It remains strongly its own movie. At no point does this movie feel like it drags. When you leave Tatooine, you get to Endor, and you've watched a 2-hour movie. You know, it has it pays great service to everything that came before it. It has the benefit of being made stronger since the release of the prequels. It gives all of its characters their moments, manages to properly introduce a new villain, not one in hologram form, but to tell a complete story. It features what is still the best battle scene in all of Star Wars, blending all 3 battles, ground, space, and Death Star, into the most thrilling hours Star Wars has ever produced. Empire is a great movie, but it's not a complete movie. It still has those loose threads. It's set up, and while it sets up very, very well, it's still incomplete and has that small drag in the middle and doesn't really pick up again until the Falcon reaches Bespin. You say Jabba was set up. Jabba wasn't really set up. They mentioned him a couple of times, and he's shown in the special editions, but it's not. Return of the Jedi is a perfect culmination of story, sticks a landing for a movie that was great, and this one's better.
And time. All right, Henry, back over to you for the final minute when you start speaking.
You contradict yourself by saying that Return of the Jedi, it's its own movie, but you also say that it holds up even better because of the prequels, but also knocking my movie, saying it asks the question, yours answer it. That definitely contradicts itself. If you're going to have all the better questions, you have The Empire Strikes Back, because in your movie, you literally said that in the prequels, it makes Return of the Jedi better, where guess what? Empire Strikes Back, it asks all the questions. So if Return of the Jedi does that, then it makes Empire even better. So if Empire's already better, and it just keeps on going. I would rather have the Hoth battle and the Dagobah sequence and the battle of Cloud City. I would have all that emotion and battle there than I would have anything on Endor combined, because it just doesn't have the level of severity of it, because it just doesn't have the great filmmaking behind it. The revelation of Luke and Vader of "No, I am your father" is way more heart-wrenching than Vader at the last minute deciding he wants to be a good guy. It feels tacked on at the end, because guess what? We need to have a happy ending. Empire Strikes Back had the balls to be to end on a dour note, and it really showcases that why Empire Strikes Back is not only the best movie in the entire Star Wars franchise, but is one of the greatest movies of all time, because it's just hand down number one. It has everything that you want.
And time. All right, I'm going to go ahead and send you guys to the back and bring in the judges. Not a lot of fact checking on that end for this round. The only real comment that was made that could be checked was that Empire Strikes Back is the first or one of the first films to have a ending where the villain wins. That is incorrect. Looking up lists of all-time great films where the bad guy wins, even if you want to stick to just some of the biggest films, we have movies like Cool Hand Luke, Rosemary's Baby, Night of the Living Dead, Clockwork Orange, all of which came out about 10 plus years prior to The Empire Strikes Back. That's just the tip of the list. While Empire Strikes Back is a film that would probably be on these lists of best films to have the bad guy win, it is not definitively one of the first, and it certainly wasn't the first big one to do it either. But other than that, very clean round, gentlemen. With that said, I am going to go to the judges. Alan, you are up first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main point that sold it?
Joe, you were right. Tell your sister you were right.
All right. Nice, cool, easy, and simple. Joe gets the first vote from Alan. Kevin, I go up to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main point that sold it?
My vote is going to Joe as well. I think he did a good job of talking about how his film, Return of the Jedi, answers the question, closes a lot of the characters' arcs without dragging, and I think that's a good thing for the story. Henry did a really good job of bringing up a lot of the pop culture quotes and stuff, but Joe did a better job.
All right. Well, judges, thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead and send you to the back as I bring back in the competitors. And Henry knows how this next part works. So while we wait for him to get back, we're going to go over the rules as we are now heading into questions 5 and 6 of the title match, which are blind rounds. If anybody needs a reminder as to how the blind rounds work, these are questions of which the competitors have no semblance of an idea as to where they are going to come from. They could be picked for any reason. Usually they're just questions from my question bank that I pull into the match that are not too destined to screw people over. We don't want to make it too difficult. The way that it's going to work is the competitors will be given a generalization of a question. The long-standing example I have used is name me a Will Smith movie, just to kind of continue the example there. So I will give them a generalization. They will give me an answer, and then I will reveal the actual question to them, at which point they will have to debate their film. Even if they don't feel it 100% meets the qualification of the question, they will have to do their best to beat it. Now, as I said, questions 5 and 6 in the title matches are both blind rounds. We do have the speed round as a tiebreaker should we need to go to it. So in order to kind of streamline this and make it go as easily as possible for these gentlemen, I am going to give you guys both your generalizations here and now, and you're going to answer them first, and then we will give you guys the break to go ahead and prep your argument. So with that said, do you guys have any questions for me?
Nope.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. And my plan from the beginning was to always use a question of this variety in the title match because it has been my long-standing example. However, it just so happens that pop culture has made it a thing that is relevant at the time of recording. The question is, name me a Will Smith film from the 2010s.
Focus.
All right. Joe has gone with Focus. Because we are going to be sticking with the order from previous rounds, Joe, you will go first on the second question, which means you will go second on this first question. So Focus.
I will go with Collateral Beauty.
All right. So the battle is going to be between Focus and Collateral Beauty. We'll go ahead and do the second generalization before we reveal the questions. And this one is absolutely capitalizing on recent events. Name me a Chris Rock film.
Dogma.
Dogma.
The Longest Yard.
The Longest Yard. All right. So, question number 1, in which the battle is Collateral Beauty versus Focus. The question is, what is the best Will Smith film of the 2010s? The second question, which is between Dogma and The Longest Yard, is, what is Chris Rock's best film? So with that said, the competitors are going to have some time behind the scenes to put their arguments together for both of these questions. You watching at home, you're only going to have to wait about 20 seconds or so, and we'll be back in just a moment with the blind rounds. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I hope you enjoyed that little elevator music interlude there, but we are back. These guys have had some time to put together some arguments. Again, questions 5 and 6 are both going to be blind rounds. So just to give you guys a quick reminder of what went down, the 2 random prompts were name me a Will Smith film from the 2010s and name me a Chris Rock film. Yes, it is absolutely dated by the time that this airs. I hope the media is not talking about this still in like 2 weeks' time. But with that said, it will be dated by then. But I still thought it would be funny to do. So we're going to go ahead and get into the first question, which is question number 5. What is the best Will Smith film of the 2010s? We do have Collateral Beauty. We do have Focus. With that said, Henry, you are up first with Collateral Beauty. So we'll go ahead and bring in the timer, and it will start ticking when you begin speaking, sir. Best of luck, guys.
So Collateral Beauty is the best movie of the 2010s from Will Smith because it provides Will Smith the opportunity to step out of his comfort zone and to be something that we've never seen him before. It covers mental health and tragedy and how we deal with a loved one, but it also covers the difference of how the people around you support you, or in this case, don't support you with your mental health issues and your tragedy. Similar to what I was talking about earlier in the debate with The Lost Weekend, the difference of this movie is the fact that Will Smith's character does not have a great supporting cast, and in fact, they are actually trying to set him up to look like he has more mental health issues than the fact that he's just suffering from a tragedy. This is a movie that tackles a situation that is honestly really sad, but it also has a lot of levity because Will Smith is still a fantastic actor, and his supporting leads of Michael Pena, Edward Norton, and Kate Winslet, as well as his wife that we find out later, Naomi Harris. Their characters, they're fantastic in their role, and they all showcase why this type of story needs to be told, because even though we are rooting for them and we don't like the fact that they're doing that, stuff like this does happen, and it is a shame, but it shows the two sides of a coin of mental health issues as well as depression and tragic incidences. So Collateral Beauty is his best of the 2010s.
And time. All right, Joe, back over to you for 1 minute.
For me, I think Focus is the best movie, Will Smith movie of the 2010s. Focus is a movie that manages to be Soderberghy without being directed by Steven Soderbergh. I think it's a movie that, again, shows Will Smith in a light that we're not so used to seeing him as a master with an apprentice, and we've seen him before in things like Men in Black as being the apprentice, but him being the master here of something that he's truly skilled at, I think is something fantastic. The only other time we've really seen that before with Hitch, but this time the apprentice is a little bit more competent than someone who's a little bit more likable in what you get with Margot Robbie. I think Focus is a fantastic movie full of twists and turns and reveals, all of which do service the plot. There's some wonderful sequences. The sympathy for the devil sequence in the box at the baseball match is a fantastic sequence. It really showcases Will Smith's charm and likability as an actor and as a lead, and it also manages to showcase the up and coming at the time Margot Robbie as just a fantastic actress with a lot of potential of where she's going to go, and being sort of that apprentice to a great actor like Will Smith. It's a fantastic movie with fantastic direction, fantastic score,
and time. All right, Collateral Beauty versus Focus is the battle. Henry, over to you for 2 minutes.
All right, so Focus, ironically, is in fact unfocused. You could tell that it has two directors at the helm, and they don't know exactly how they want to go about the story. You have a small scale in the first half, and then you have a larger, heist aspect of it in the second half. And at that point, that is just too much to handle for this type of storyline of a, small end, pocket snatchers. It's one of those things where obviously the two leads of Will Smith and Margot Robbie are going to be engaging just because they're two charismatic actors. I'm not going to knock that, but the fact is, around them, you don't care about anything else. You don't care about any of the other supporting characters, and you definitely don't know any of the names. Collateral Beauty is one of the things where it obviously focuses on Will Smith's character with his reclusiveness and his may or may not mental health issues, but also his tragic depression state. But you also see the point of view of his friends, quote unquote friends, who end up doing this because they do it for selfish reasons, for the business aspect, but they also do it because at the end of the day, sometimes you need to go, do desperate things to get someone out of their rut. So it's one of those things that by the end, it's like you're not happy with them because they do this despicable thing, but you also understand why they're doing it. So it doesn't necessarily paint them as villains, but it also showcases, the full scale of what the story is. The final scene, everything that you're talking about with yours is it's one of those things where it's forgettable. But the final confrontation between Will Smith and Naomi Harris, when they finally confront the fact of the loss of their daughter, it's one of the most heart-wrenching scenes that you'll probably ever see in Will Smith's career, because of the fact that at leading up to that, they both have avoided, they both come distant. So far into that movie, you honestly didn't even realize that they're married because of the fact that how distant they are. And that's one of the most real life aspects of this type of situation that you would ever see in life, in depression, because when you're depressed, you become a recluse. And this definitely doesn't shy away from it. All the supporting actors that play Death, Love, and Time, they do a fantastic job, because it's one of those things where they're just doing a job. They don't know the state of what they need to do, but they're also having some real conversations. If you look at the trailer of this movie, you feel like it's manipulative and you feel like it's a fantasy, but it's one of those things that it's a lot deeper than you expect. So the people didn't give it the chance that they needed. Focus is one of those where you watch it once, you turn it off, and you're like, oh, you totally forget about it. Collateral Beauty sticks with you because it has that emotional impact and that emotional gut punch, and Will Smith is amazing.
And time. All right, we're going to go back over to Joe. 2 minutes on the clock.
Look, Focus is a great deal of fun. It's certainly not predictable, and I think both directors, Ficarra and Request, set no real values in terms of where their characters would go. They sort of let the actors take that on and let it flow, and I think that works really well with the cons. You've got the relationship itself spans 3 years. There's a lot of familiarities there, things that bring people in. There's lots of dazzling people, none of whom can be trusted. Ficarra and Morocco keep the cons lively, and you see the way they get drawn into each other's worlds and pull each other off. It's dotted with, it's got so many great performances, and even if half the characters don't matter or come into play much, you still have musing antagonists, fantastic performances that come in. The issue with Collateral Beauty is that it's forgettable. You say this is, you're seeing something that Will Smith has never done before. I'm sorry, but 7 Pounds and The Pursuit of Happiness came before this. We've seen Will Smith be able to do drama and do it in a much better way. It's what Collateral Beauty is. It's toxic cutesy sensibility. The ensemble is there, but it's got it. I think Helen Mirren has a line as her own character. I think it's maybe I should play all the characters, and maybe she should, because I think that would actually be more enjoyable than watching Will Smith mope and cry on a bicycle for 2 hours. What Focus gives us is something energetic, something that showcases both these actors' talents and gives us something a little bit different. We've seen Will Smith, we've seen him play the action lead, and we've seen him do the dramatic roles, but what we get here is something of him being a master. And the thing is, the cons are what keep you there. You want to see how they do what they do. It's revealed in perfect sensibility. People love the way Soderbergh reveals the way a heist is done, and it's the same thing that's done in this movie, but it's done with a completely different style. But it gives you that same sense of thrillingness that you get from a movie. Yes, but drama can be easy. You give people some really sad stories. This person had a child that died. This person is suffering with a deadly illness. You're going to get emotion from that. But the difference is, if you can keep something as thrilling as this, and you can keep the audience engaged, I think that's a lot harder to do.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will start when the first competitor speaks.
So you mentioned everything with focus of all these quote unquote highlight aspects of this film, but you're just describing the first half of the movie. It's one of those things when it does the quick edits and it does all the things where it's like, oh, the flashy fun. Yeah, but that's the first half. As soon as you get to the second half where they're quote unquote scheming for the big heist, they're in over their heads. Whereas Collateral Beauty, it has the balance of the entire thing. And you compared it to films like Pursuit of Happiness and 7 Pounds. But guess what? Those are different types of dramas. It's okay for an actor to do multiple dramas as long as it's not a retread of that. This is completely different, dealing with the death of a daughter and dealing with the mental health issues. Whereas Focus, it makes you actually wish that you were rather watching a Steven Soderbergh movie. You're like, oh, I'm 10 minutes of this movie. I'd rather watch Ocean's 11.
I don't think that's true at all. I think the difference is what Will Smith and Margot Robbie bring to that is something different. Yes, it's still, a heist and revealing how a heist was done, but it's done in a completely different style. The issue with Collateral Beauty is out of the dramatic performances, it's the most forgettable one. Yes, it has these big horrible things that have happened to these characters, but that's manipulative. It's toxic. It's a drama for drama's sake. Let's be honest. You see the ending of Collateral Beauty. It's an ending M. Night Shyamalan would have thrown out for being too ridiculous. It's not an entertaining movie. It's dull. It's dreary. You have no sense of any real care for these characters. Even Will Smith's co-workers who bring these actors in to play Love, Death and Time, they're not good people, and yes, all these actors have got something going on too. Oh, let's all look, everyone's got stuff going on. It's so typical and so easily done. But to actually keep people engaged with a heist story and to create different heists and to create heists in different manners and have different revelations and have different ways of doing things, including the reveal at the end of the gunshot wound to Will Smith and how he gets out of that, it's all fantastically done, and it keeps its audience on its toes.
Yeah, once again, everything that you're describing about your movie, it's one of those things that you wish you were rather just watching Ocean's 11. When the flip up scene of Brad Pitt in Ocean's 11 is more satisfying than the scene with Will Smith and realizing everything that happened there. Collateral Beauty, you say that it's a revelation that M. Night Shyamalan would laugh at, but guess what? There's no twist by the end of the movie. You realize what they're doing in the first half hour of the movie. It's not trying to pull you under the rug. That was just
that's why it becomes predictable.
Yeah, no.
You realize what they're going to do. You realize where they're going with it. It becomes predictable.
It's not trying. The whole point is it's not trying to be a gimmick. It's trying to really tell a story, and it's really trying to deal with it. By the end, you have a revelation of how you're going to prevail from this death of a tragedy. Death of a daughter, the tragedy and the depression, the mental health. It covers that. Focus, literally, like I said, it's unfocused. It's ironic that your title is Focus, because in the end of the movie, your movie would actually be a fantastic short film. It's one of those things where it's like when you had the original Saw, and that was like lightning in the bottle, and they remade it to a full film, and it worked. Focus, if it was a short film, it would have been good. Otherwise, it's just a throwaway one you don't care about. Like I said, you have Will Smith and Margot Robbie at the leads, and they're going back and forth, and they're doing their thing with the flashy editing and stuff. But when you actually delve deep into what the actual film is trying to say or what it's trying to do outside of Margot Robbie and Will Smith, it's just not as interesting. Mine at least has a bunch of characters that you care about and you're following with.
So your essential point is, if once you take the stuff in the movie and you take other stuff, it's not as interesting. Well, guess what? The stuff in the movie is interesting. If you don't, you're not going to take the stuff that's interesting out of an interesting movie. You can't.
Yeah, but you only have 5 minutes of interesting in almost a 2-hour movie. Your movie's way too long too. It's unfocused. It has two halves of the story. The first half of the movie, if it was a short film, I would even give you 30-45 minutes of a short film. It would be actually really good, but then it delves deep into it, and that really showcases the fact that there's two directors. They don't know what they're doing. They're clashing. It's one of those things where that's at that point, that's where Will Smith
I don't think there is a clash there. I think it's called focus, and I think they had their focus. They had their focus there in the movie. They knew exactly where they wanted to go with it. They knew exactly the story they wanted to tell. The reveals at the end make sense to the stuff that's set up in the beginning. The thing is, the only thing that Collateral Beauty does is sets you up with an audience and an ending that makes you want to cry. That's all it's done there for. It's schlocky. It's trying to be Oscar bait, and it's nowhere near enough good quality to
everything that you're saying about the ending.
You look at the storyline. A dead child, cancer, Helen Mirren, Edward Norton. It's Oscar bait, and it completely fails across the board to be Oscar bait. It's nothing short than being manipulative and taking a completely.
It would be manipulative if all this was a revelation at the end, but it sets it up in the first 20 minutes that this is what's going to be. So it's telling a full-fledged story. It fleshes out, and you really care about it. In Focus, you just don't care, and it's very forgettable by the end of it. And this is definitely Will Smith's best performance, by the way.
No way.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 1-minute closings. Henry, you are up first.
All right, so the question is, what is the best Will Smith movie of the 2010s? Collateral Beauty is a movie that provides Will Smith with the opportunity to be Will Smith when he has flashbacks of being when he wasn't sad, but it also showcases everything that he's doing in his present day of being depressed. It has the relationship where he's building all or his stuff, where he's building all these things in his office to showcase his creativity, his depression. But he also has the relationships with time, death, and love, where it gives him a chance to kind of be himself. It's the first time he's really opened up since death of his daughter, because at the time he's really thinking that he's talking to these fictional people. And granted, it is a diabolical plan from his friends, but like I said, it doesn't shy away from the fact that it's doing that, because in real life, that's exactly how this type of story would handle, because someone's trying to take over your business. And you say that it would be bullshit of like an M. Night Shyamalan twist, but it's not. It tells you in the first 20 minutes what it's doing. So it's a full-fledged story from beginning to end. It's heart-wrenching. The scene between Will Smith and Naomi Harris not only is the best acting from Will Smith of the 2010s and way better than anything that you get in Focus combined, but also it's probably top 5 acting of Will Smith's entire career, because everything it's very earned, and it's not Oscar bait. Just because you think it's Oscar bait, that's one of those things, that's fine, but the actual movie speaks for itself.
And time. All right, Joe, back over to you for 1 minute.
Focus is a stylish, fantastic movie which is constantly full of different twists and turns and reveals, each of which feel fresh and new and exciting. That's something that's quite difficult to do when it turns to a heist. You could easily just say, this is the way we do things, and this is the way it pans out. This is the way we do it. This is the way it pans out. But no, it's constantly full of twists and turns, and every single one of them feels fresh. Collateral Beauty is trying to be something that it's not. It's trying to be more heartfelt, more deeper, and more emotional than it comes to be. The problem is none of these characters are likable. Yes, they've had bad things happen to them, and that makes you feel sorry for them, but the stuff they do in their own personal lives, it still doesn't make them likable. The characters that bring in Love, Death, and Time to Will Smith's character, they're not good people. The people themselves, they're not good people because they shouldn't be doing this in the first place. The ending is completely ridiculous. It may set itself up, but that still doesn't make it ridiculous. You know, Helen Mirren said she should be playing all the characters, and maybe she should have been, because it would have been a lot more exciting. You know, Will Smith has done drama better in 7 Pounds of Pursuit of Happiness, but what he hasn't done is Master and Apprentice better. He's good at it in Hitch, but he perfects it in Focus, and that's what makes it better. And Margot Robbie is a likable second character. She brings that energy, she brings that compassion. It's fantastic.
And time. All right, guys, a very good debate there. I'm going to go ahead and send you to the back and bring in the judges here. Not a lot of fact checking going on there. The few quick things. So it was mentioned multiple times that Focus does have 2 directors, and it should be worth clarifying that that's not in the sense of like a solo where the film had 2 different directors. It was a writing director duo, John Recca and Glenn Ficarra, who have worked their entire careers together. They began as writers, writing on films like Bad Santa, Looney Tunes, Back in Action, and Bad News Bears, before going on to direct. In addition to directing Focus, they also directed films like I Love You, Philip Morris, and Crazy Stupid Love. So they are a duo that work together on every project. The other thing is, and again, I want the general unpleasantness of this to not be anything that affects the judges, but a lot of times it was brought up that Collateral Beauty had a twist without ever actually being said what it was. So to clarify for the viewers at home what it is they were discussing, or my attempt to clarify for the viewers what they were discussing, the basic plot of Collateral Beauty is 3 main employees that work at a company that is ran by Will Smith are attempting to have him removed from the company because his own personal mental health is deteriorating and is affecting the business of the company. They go on to hire 3 actors to play the abstract concepts of love, time, and death. And they basically speak to Will Smith in an attempt to try and help him mentally process and move on. These conversations are recorded by the employees of this company, at which point the actors are digitally removed from the video, and this is them attempting to have Will Smith fired from his own company so that they can take over and assume the company and make sure that it does not go under. Or at least if I'm understanding the argument correctly, the twist at the end of the film is that in the final moments of the film, it is implied, based on Will Smith being able to see these actors and another character in the film not being able to see them in that moment, that they may actually be the real life concepts of love, time, and death, which Will Smith attempted to write letters to earlier in the film. Again, not necessarily the most pleasant plot. That was what was brought up in the argument, though. I just wanted to make sure that everyone at home understood what the film was about if you had never seen it, since it was alluded to but not exactly said. And with that said, though, Kevin, you're up first. Based on the arguments, who gets your vote?
This was a really tough one. I think both gave really good arguments. Henry started off by saying that it was an unfocused movie by having the 2 different kind of like the small scale at the beginning, the bigger scale at the end. But I think Joe did a good point, or made good points coming back by saying that you needed that second half, the big heist. This was a good one for Will Smith to have the master and apprentice role with Margot Robbie. And Joe just gave me enough to give him the point, just barely though.
All right, so the first vote there does go to Joe. Noah, you are up next. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
I'll keep it really short. I'm going to give it my point to Joe, mainly because he was right there. He kept saying that the film was manipulative, Oscar bait, and it feels fresh. And sorry, Henry's movie is Oscar bait and feels manipulative, and while his movie is fresh and new. So.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. I'll go ahead and send you to the back as we will bring back in the competitors to move on to question number 5. All right, so we are going to go ahead and move on to question number 6, which is the second blind round question. As a reminder, the prompt was name me a Chris Rock film, and the question is, what is Chris Rock's best film? We have Dogma up against The Longest Yard. Joe, you are up first on this one, so I will go ahead and bring up the timer, and it will start when you begin speaking.
Chris Rock's always been entertaining. Some of his stand-up specials, some of the best I've seen, with the exception of Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, and my own personal Lee Evans and Jack D from the UK. But when it comes to his movies, he has so many memorable parts, and for me, none beat the movie Dogma. I think Dogma is a fantastic movie. Regardless of Chris Rock's performance in it, which is still fantastic, the whole movie as a whole works. Dogma is a fantastic movie, a wholly original story, something completely while sitting inside the Viewer's universe, it's something that feels completely different from anything that's in the Viewer's universe, with the exception of including Jay and Silent Bob, of course. You have great performances from not only Rock, but you also have Affleck and Damon, Linda Fiorentino, Alan Rickman, Jason Lee, all giving great performances. And it's a perfect example of how Kevin Smith makes movies. It's something that's very personal to him, but also something that sort of skews a different way. We all know about how Kevin Smith was brought up Catholic, and he completely skews that, so he uses his knowledge of it, but also the way he feels about it. It's a perfect encapsulation of his direction.
All right, Henry, over to you for your opening minute on Longest Yard.
So The Longest Yard is Chris Rock's best film because it really gives him a chance to showcase a lot of comedy as well as a lot of emotion. His dynamic between himself and Adam Sandler is fantastic. The way that the whole plot of the story is that Paul Cruz's character sabotages his own personal life after throwing some games, and people hate him, and he's kind of in a depressive state where he gets in trouble and he gets put in prison. And at that point, everyone hates him because he threw the game, and it's kind of about honor. And if you see a lot of crime movies, it's one of those things that's ironic, the way that they think about honor within the criminal system. He hires Paul Cruz to be the head coach, ironically, and quarterback of the Cons as kind of like a pickup game to get the guards kind of warmed up for the season. And it's one of those things where unfortunately Paul Cruz can't play in the game, so he needs him to gather a team. And it's one of those things where the guards are supposed to just beat up on him, but Adam Sandler and Chris Rock work together, do some fantastic recruiting inside of a lot of comedy. So it definitely combines the sport aspect as well as the comedy aspect, and it's not only one of Adam Sandler's best films, it is definitely Chris Rock's number one.
And time. All right, back to the 2 minutes for Joe.
Movies work a lot better when they have something to say. You can give a great performance in a movie, you can have a laugh at a movie, but sometimes a movie is much more effective when it has something to say. Smith had something to say when he made Dogma. He was looking at the way religion influences things, and you even look at where Linda Fiorentino's character works in the beginning. She does work in an abortion clinic. It's still a very sensitive topic, but still Kevin Smith had something to say. Whether you agree with him or not, he had something to say. The problem with The Longest Yard is that as a movie itself, it's a poor remake is what it is. You know, it has nothing to say. You know, you don't feel that connection with the characters. With Dogma, you feel that connection to the characters, whether you're coming in from other parts of the Viewer's universe where you already know and love Jay and Silent Bob, or whether you're connecting with Linda Fiorentina's character, or whether you're connecting with Chris Rock, or whether you're connecting even with Alan Rickman, who is just a fantastic actor and who, after seeing Kevin Smith's work, wanted to be in a Kevin Smith movie. And he was in the best one. Dogma knows what it wants to be as well. It knows exactly what it wants to be. It doesn't drag at any point. It tells its complete story from start to finish with some great comedic moments in the middle. The Longest Yard doesn't know what it wants to be. The original Longest Yard was a movie that was a dramatic movie with some great comedy moments in it. The problem with the remake of The Longest Yard is that it couldn't decide where it wanted to be, and it ends up being nothing. It doesn't give you anything different. There was no point in making this remake. It doesn't open it up to a newer audience. It doesn't bring anything new. At the very least, when you remade The Longest Yard with the UK version with Mean Machine, which focused on proper football, soccer, if you will, it had something different, and it did open it up to a new audience. It did bring some other people in, something that, you know, a UK audience wasn't necessarily. There was a reason to make that. With The Longest Yard, there was no reason to make it. Dogma has something to say. It does it in a fantastic way. It's still memorable. It still holds up. It's still one of Kevin Smith's best movies. It features fantastic performance. Chris Rock is very memorable in his mention of as the 13th forgotten apostle, and even that in itself is saying something. Why did they write him? He even says, why was he written out of the Bible? Why was Jesus changed to white in the Bible? Because they were black. It has something to say. Even now, it still holds up and is still relevant. The Longest Yard is a forgettable movie that has nothing to say and nothing new to add, and doesn't open itself up. It's a poor remake made
And that will be time. All right, Henry, back over to you for 2 minutes on the clock, sir.
Yeah, unfortunately, everything that you pretty much said for both of our movies is the exact opposite of the truth. Dogma is a movie that definitely doesn't hold up today, but it also was controversial at the time that it came out. So not only does it not hold up today, it didn't even really hold up immediately when it came out. Sure, the niche Kevin Smith fans love it, or maybe even like it, tolerate it, but it's one of those things where it's not even the best movie in the View Askew universe that actually has Chris Rock in it. You could go with Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So you're not even getting the best Chris Rock movie within the View Askew universe. The Longest Yard, you actually contradict yourself when you say that the original is dramatic with a little bit of comedy, but the new one is doing the exact same, but that's exact opposite. It's very funny that it has a lot of emotion and heart. Chris Rock's caretaker actually dies in the movie, but they do it to set up that they really tried to kill Paul Crewe, and then they not only did they not kill Paul Crewe, they actually framed Paul Crewe for his murder because the way he didn't want to play ball, because he's learning his lesson, because he didn't want to throw another game. He actually wanted to get integrity. He actually had some character growth within the film, and it also tackles racism. The guards, they are racist against the African American inmates, and it's one of those things where it says unfortunate things, and it's one of those things that doesn't shy away from the fact that that stuff happens in real life. It's one of the moments in Adam Sandler movies where it actually does have a lot to say, and you know, it's one of those things that there's a chance that maybe you haven't seen it, or maybe you haven't seen it in a while, but it actually has a lot to say. It covers corruption within the prison system. It covers throwing games and integrity within the sports field. It covers friendship and emotion. It doesn't cast judgment. It provides the option of redemption within the prison system, but it also covers the racism aspect within not only the prison system, but just life in general. It fights segregation. The African-American characters who are playing basketball, which ironically, they're Michael Irvin, he's a real football player in real life. Adam Sandler, he goes and challenges him to a basketball game, and Michael Irvin's character plays dirty the entire time, elbowing him in the face and everything. And Paul Crewe, he's standing up for himself. He's not calling any of his fouls because he wants to showcase that, hey, we need to come together. We need to fight against the system. And it's one of those things that it has a lot to say. Dogma is a movie that just does not hold up, not even at the time it made. It's one of the forgettable movies within the View Askew universe, and it's just not memorable. And especially Chris Rock within the movie, who cares?
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will start when the first competitor speaks.
At least with Dogma, you can understand why the movie was made. Kevin Smith had an idea. He had something he wanted to say, and you look at the things he lampoons and the things he skews in that movie. You look at the corporization of religion. You look at corporate America in general. You look at racism. You look at religion. You look at all these different things, and you see why they're satirized. The difference is, The Longest Yard is just a remake. It's just telling a story that was already told before. Dogma is a story that hasn't been told before and hasn't been told since. The Longest Yard is a movie that has been remade and remade and remade constantly. And the most forgettable one is the Adam Sandler version, because the original is the original. It tells the story it has to tell. It tackles all those issues that you've already mentioned, and it tackles it in a better way. And the other one does it does it in a much better way, but it does it for the UK audience, and at least there's a reason to make it. The other fact that they make it is completely irrelevant. It's just another way of getting Adam Sandler in a movie, which still baffles me to this day.
Yeah, it's one of those things where in this entire argument, you keep contradicting yourself. When you were describing Dogma, it sounded like you were actually describing The Longest Yard, talking about the corrupt system and dealing with the racism and stuff.
So it's not contradicting. It's not how
it is, because you're trying to say that my movie isn't that, but you're describing your movie, but you're also describing my movie, as I've already mentioned that beforehand. And I'm
describing the original Longest Yard.
You're saying The Longest Yard is just a ripoff of a remake, but you also contradict yourself earlier when you said that it's just a carbon copy, but it doesn't. It actually separates itself from it by showing the racial aspects, by showing the corrupt system, by showing the friendship that you can have within the movie, and saying that, oh, it's a remake, so it's not as good. Are you trying to say that 2018 Star is Born is now good, or the newest version of Little Women's not good just because they've done multiple?
No, it's a different thing. It's called subtext. It's some remakes are good, some aren't. Star is Born remake is good. The Longest Yard remake isn't. If it's really that hard for you to tell the difference,
you're just saying lazy clickbait words. You're not really even giving any substance. You're not really actually knocking anything in my film. If Adam Sandler was in this movie, you wouldn't have anything technical negative to say about it. Just because other Adam Sandler movies have a stigma on it doesn't mean that this specific movie doesn't. It covers a lot of very important topics in the entire film, but it's also a fantastic sports comedy, which, guess what, especially during that time, we're not getting that many great ones of it, and it's definitely one of the best. Whereas Dogma, it's one of those things, like I said, it did not even hold up when it first came out. There was protests, there was riots. They didn't want to show it because it's controversial thing. Yeah, you said Kevin Smith had something to say. He also had tried something to say with Cop Out, but no one gives a shit about that movie. The question is, what is the best Chris Rock film? And Chris Rock's not even important in the movie.
That means it doesn't hold up. That's a completely irrelevant point. The fact of the matter is, the points he makes in those movies, the things he's lampooning, the things he's skewing, are still things that are relevant in culture and in public domain today. The difference.
So what you're saying is we should probably get a remake of Dogma so it can be said better, similar to how we got a remake of The Longest Yard and it was done better. So what you're saying,
it wasn't done better. The thing is, the original Longest Yard knew exactly what it wanted to be. It knew it wanted to be a movie that was dramatic and had some comedic moments. The thing is, the original Longest Yard, because it had Adam Sandler, it tried to be nothing but an out-and-out comedy, which is something that it failed to do. There are no real standout funny moments in that. At least in Dogma, you have the funny moments. You have Alan Rickman's performance, the way he delivers some of his lines. You have the whole scene in the strip club with the shit demon and everything like that. These are funny moments. These are great scenes. You have the whole moment with God being Alanis Morissette and revealing her voice. These are all things that are memorable and things that stick out from the movie. The thing with The Longest Yard is it doesn't stick out. The only thing that sticks out about it is that it's a poor remake that was done better in the original and was done better in the UK version with Mean Machine.
As always, you're not giving any specifics of trying to knock The Longest Yard. I'm giving you specifics of in The Longest Yard of the dealing with the racism and the spec. The very first scene when we before Nellie's character gets introduced to the team, when Stone Cold Steve Austin's character is knocking the books over and he's calling him the N-word. It's one of those things that bother you. He's like, no, that doesn't bother me. You're my friend. Because guess what? Not all African American people in general, let alone criminals, are automatically going to jump to violence. And it has something to say, saying that they're decent people. It provides redemption for these inmates and how they can work together and become a family. Because guess what? These criminals are better people than the corrupt guards and the warden within within that prison. Whereas in Dogma, it's got all these showy things, but guess what? Like I said, it's a niche film. It's not even one of the better things from Kevin Smith. So Kevin Smith movies in general are a niche, but also this one is not even the top of that, and it's definitely not even the top one that features Chris Rock. I would rather have you said Jay and Silent Strike Back, because Chris Rock.
It's the second highest rated Kevin Smith movie after Clerks. So let's bring it down to say that it's not doesn't hold up and it's not memorable. It's the second highest rated Kevin Smith movie after Clerks, which is 7.7. This has a 7.3. The Longest Yard does exactly, it's showing that the inmates are better than the corrupt officials. So that's exactly what the original does, but the original does it better.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the final minute of the round. Joe, you are up first with Dogma. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Dogma is a movie that tackled issues that are still relevant today. It doesn't tackle them. It doesn't try to solve them. It just tries to bring it out into the public domain and into the public conversation. And that's what Kevin Smith did. The reason there were protests about it is because they are controversial topics. To say it's not a popular movie is not the best movie. It's still the second highest rated Kevin Smith movie, especially within the Viewer's universe. Clerks, being the original, being an independent film, was obviously going to get the higher ratings. But Dogma, because of the story it tells, the performance that are given from the actors, the different aspects, the comedic moments on it, throwing Bartleby and Loki off the train and quoting Indiana Jones. These are all moments that are memorable. No Ticket is still a memorable moment. The problem with The Longest Yard is it's a remake that had nothing new to say. If you're going to remake a movie, you have to do it for a reason. You have to have something to say. It doesn't have anything to say that wasn't originally said in the other movies. Yes, the prison system is corrupt. Yes, some of the inmates are probably better characters and better people than them. But that's exactly what the original movie said. The only reason it was made was to give Adam Sandler another vehicle and yet another vehicle, which is what constantly keeps happening. me. You want to see a good remake of The Longest Yard? Watch Mean Machine with Vinnie Jones. It's a much better version, and at least it has something different, something new to say, and tells it in a different light and opens it out to a new audience. Whereas Dogma is a movie that doesn't need to be remade because it's perfect, because it's a great movie and does everything.
And time. All right, Henry, final minute.
Ladies and gentlemen of the judges, I just want you to pay attention that when my opponent is trying to knock my movie, but he's not saying specific. He's saying a lot of buzzwords. He's saying that my movie is just a remake. My movie has nothing to say, and my movie is just like the thing with the corruption of the system. But guess what? They're inmates within a prison. So yeah, that part, sure, I'll give you that. That one carries over. But like I said, it covers the racism aspect. Guess what? They're not covering racism in the 70s when the original came out. That's definitely not the case. This one had a lot more to say. And also, Chris Rock's character, specifically in the best Chris Rock movie, his character dies, and it provides a lot of emotion, similar to what I talked about earlier with the Mickey's death in Rocky. It provided them the motivation to not give up, to finally work together and eventually win. And then there's a scene at the very end of the movie where the lead guard is told to shoot Adam Sandler because it looks like he's going to escape, but that character, he finally gets a mark. He finally realized that Paul Crewe and the inmates aren't as bad, and he doesn't shoot, and he realized that's the game ball, because guess what? It has something to say. It showcases that people deserve a second chance. Don't judge a book by its cover. Dogma, it's one of those controversial things that didn't even hold up in its day because there's protests, people hated it. It covered the abortion stuff, and guess what? It doesn't hold up today, and it really didn't even hold up when it first came out. It's niche, and it don't even care about it.
And time. All right, guys. Another great debate. I'm going to go ahead and send you to the back as I will bring in the judges for this round. In terms of any type of fact checking, the first thing is yes, for anyone who did not know, the Adam Sandler film The Longest Yard is a remake. The original film, also titled The Longest Yard, was released in 1974. The remake did come in 2005. There were also two international remakes. In 2001, there was the British film Mean Machine, starring Vinnie Jones. And in 2015, there was the Egyptian film Captain Nasir, I'm assuming is how that's pronounced. Both international versions of the remake changed it from American football to association football or soccer for Americans. That is the sport that they chose to go with, as it is more internationally recognized than American football here in the U.S. When talking about the protests against Dogma, the majority of the protesting against Dogma came from a religious activist group called the Catholic League, who publicly denounced the film as blasphemous. They also organized public protests outside of theaters against the film, which is why the movie had some issues in terms of distribution. People wanted to avoid having rioting happen, having protesting happening outside of the theater. However, it is noted that the Catholic Church itself has never actually come out and denounced the film. To use a quote that Roger Ebert said in his review, mentioning the Catholic Church and the fact that it itself did not denounce the film, he said, quote, "We are actually free in this country to disagree about religion, and blasphemy is not a crime." So a particular activist group was the one that responded to it, not the actual church itself. Other than that, there's not really much to say. Obviously, the original Longest Yard film does have better reviews than the more recent one. However, if in Googling, I came across a couple of smaller websites, fan websites, reviewer websites, in which a lot of people nowadays actually prefer the remake of The Longest Yard to the original. So there's a bit of discrepancy there. And then when talking about Dogma's place in Kevin Smith's filmography, in terms of films that he has directed, at least using the aggregating site Rotten Tomatoes, Dogma is ranked third behind Clerks and Chasing Amy. Obviously, other sites will have different scores, so I'm sure in another site it may have been just a bit higher because it's not that much below Chasing Amy. But with that said, it is about what was said in the argument. I was just cleaning up some side piece facts there. Noah, you are up first on this one, so I go to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Henry has absolutely played his heart out today. He's brought a lot of emotion. He's brought a lot of facts and just brought a lot of passion. And I think that's one of the reasons why we love watching and participating in Movie Battleground. With that being said, Henry gets my point because of the points that he made, that the niche fans tolerate Dogma, and that he really said it himself in the argument that Joe didn't really have much to say against this movie, against it technically, just about it being Adam Sandler, and had nothing new to say. And then Henry even countered that, so I'm giving it to Henry.
All right, so the first vote does go to Henry. Alan, I go over to you. Who gets your vote, and what is the main selling point?
Both of these guys have done a hell of a debate today, all these, and especially this one. I was really impressed with a lot of the points that I don't remember Dogma that much. It's not one of my favorite films, but Joe really brought out a lot of good aspects about that film. But Henry really was able to counter everything Joe tried to throw at him, and defended why the remake of Long Shore was the best. So I'm going to go with Henry too.
All right. Judges, thank you so much, but I am going to send you back because your winner this evening and the new champion of Movie Battleground, Henry Confidential Sanchez.
Oh my God. Woo! I'm lost for words right now. That's thank you. That's, oh my God. We'll get into specifics later, but thank you. Oh my God.
Well, Henry, congratulations, sir. That was an excellently played match now there. 6-1, 2 knockouts. It was a hard-fought path for you to get here, and it is it's a mix of both skill and then circumstance. I've been very open about the fact that this tournament didn't go the way that I necessarily wanted it to. We had 32 signups, and then we had, unfortunately, for various reasons, both very legitimate and just, it is what it is, but we had people drop out. And we ended up with a spot in that 1-0 bracket where there was a second chance for a competitor to make a run back. You were given the opportunity to play in based on behind-the-scenes decisions. All three competitors who were put into contention, Austin, Shannon, and yourself, either had behind-the-scenes issues with their matches, or in Shannon's case, he had both of these. He also just statistically played better than all the people who lost in their initial match, and that's why he got a second chance at it. But you were the one who came out of the three of those players there victorious, and you have made the most of this second run, and it has led you to be the champion of Movie Battleground. What are your thoughts? What are you feeling right now?
Well, starting off, congratulations, Joe. You had a fantastic run in the tournament. Obviously, you were the quote unquote honorary champ going in. I'm one of the producers, and we had a chat behind the scenes where we're like, hey, should Joe, be the honorary champ again and fight for the champion, or should he be the champ? And unanimously, we said he should be the champ because he earned it before and he earned it in this tournament. So congratulations on that. Starting off this match, it looked like there was actually a chance it could have been a knockout, but obviously Joe's a resilient debater, and he definitely fought his way back. So it's one of those things where the score is actually closer than it looked like it was going to be at the beginning because of the skill and talent that Joe has. So congratulations to him. It was an honor to fight him, and I can't wait to debate him again because I know I will. I want to thank Aaron. You put a fantastic show on this thing. I know what it's like to run tournaments, leagues, full scale, small scale, all this stuff. I created the teams tournament back in the day with 32 teams, so 64 players. I know that's a hell to do, and you did a fantastic job. We started this less than a year ago, and it finished, and it was a big tournament, so you did a great job on that. Thanks to all the judges. It was an honor to be in the same call with you guys, and yeah, I have a history. It's been a long, weird few years, and I've just been trying to prove that people can change. And I kind of even brought that up a lot in my debates, where it's just one of those reoccurring things where it's like, don't judge a book by its cover, and allow people to grow and change. That's one of those things that I've been trying to do, and that's why I love debate, because it can get heated, but at the end of the day, we're going to shake hands and we're going to be respectful. And I feel like that's exactly what happened. So I'm honored to be here, and I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to do this.
All right, Henry. And so, to kind of have to come into this again after just winning, we do have a number one contenders match set up. We do know potentially who your next opponent may be, and it is either going to be it's one of two players that you have already played, one of them being me, who obviously you had to beat on the way to the tournament final and to the title match. The other competitor who just took down, again, the player who I've said is one of the best player to never win the title, Jay Burns, who is also the only person who has handed you a defeat. We play off in a number one contenders match in just a couple of weeks. The winner of that match will go on to play you. So my question to you is just initial thoughts. Who are you feeling? Who would you prefer to play a second time around in that potential matchup?
Yeah, so it's one of those things you kind of hints at. Me and you've already played, and we've already had our scenario. And no disrespect for you, you're a great competitor. Obviously, you made it this far for a reason, both as a showrunner with a lot on your plate there, but also as a debater. You're definitely one of the most underrated, and at this point, you should be properly rated as one of the greats. But we already saw that went, and obviously, you also said that Jay gave me a loss, and that's one of those weird behind-the-scenes ones where I initially had a match with Grant. It got postponed / canceled because of just personal stuff behind the scenes. He couldn't make it anymore. The new questions just weren't in my wheelhouse, and Jay's louder. He'll admit that he hadn't seen the Defy Bloods, and that's some bullshit that he got that sound argument point for all that stuff, and he admits that Phantom Menace is great. So it's one of those where I definitely would like to have that rematch with him and prove that my loss there was a fluke. Jay's one of my good friends, but I definitely want to get my redemption there. So either one works for me. So preferably Jay, but I would love to face you again.
Absolutely. And with that said, if there's anything else you want to add before you head out of here, please. But I don't think there's much more than to say congratulations, man. I've known you for a very long time, and I know that more than once you have attempted to work your way up to this point, and now you have finally reached it. So genuinely, congratulations, sir. Any other comments?
Yeah, kind of what I was touching earlier. I just want to thank anyone who's watching any videos that I'm a part of and giving me a second chance. It's one of those things that it's very emotional. It's an upward climb, both as a competitor, but also as just a person. And it's one of those things that 2022 has been a good year in terms of mental health, and it's one of those things that I'm glad that as a community we can work well together and support each other. So shout out to TMG Entertainment and Trivia and everything that you do on your two channels, Aaron, and everything that you do, and I can't wait to be a part of it some more. And thank you everyone who watches these and doesn't shy away just because I'm in the video. Appreciate it.
Well, sir, we will, I'm sure to some capacity, we will see you again, but I look forward to seeing you as a competitor in June in the next title match, because let's be real, one way or the other, I'm going to be there. If I'm not playing you, then I'm certainly not missing the chance to host it. So we'll see you there, sir.
Fair
Congratulations.
enough. Thank you, buddy. As
I go ahead and send you to the back and bring in another truly top competitor in Joe Farrelly, sir. First thing, it goes without saying, I believe, and again, unfortunately, the stats were never given to me properly, but I believe you had to go 4-0 last time in order to win the title. This time around, you had to go 5-0 in order to take it back at the end of the tournament. 9-0, 9 matches, has to be the longest undefeated streak in Battleground history, because as somebody who ran it in the old days, I know for a fact that nobody amassed that many wins without losing a couple of times along the way, even the best of players. And I know for a fact, I guess I don't know for a fact, because again, no one ever gave me the actual proper records, but considering the last time we had a champion that won, it had to be you coming in as a rookie to begin that undefeated run to get there. I'm just assuming nobody really had that many wins strung together either. So it is an impressive feat nonetheless. You played your absolute heart out, especially going 3-0 down there. You showed your mettle as a competitor to fight back into it. There's no easy way to get around it. Losing sucks. We all know it. But how are you feeling after tonight?
Yeah, not bad. And I think maybe that record maybe has something to do with it. I think when you can go 9-0, I think at some point it does make you feel a little bit untouchable, and that just your pure ability will be able to take you through it. And sometimes that's not the case. Unbeaten runs have to end. And when you come up against someone who plays the way Henry did today, it's very difficult to pull out the win. I was on the ropes very early on from the start. And he came out all guns blazing. So I managed to pull it back, but just not to the point I would have liked. It's a lesson. It's a lesson that sometimes you can't just ride on what you've done before. You do need to adapt. You need to change your game. It's something I've been able to do in trivia for a while, because every now and again those defeats do happen in trivia, and it's you are able to change your game. But at the moment, this is the first defeat in the movie and TV style of debating that I've ever had. So it's something that I'm going to have to take on board. Look at my style. My style's not bad, clearly, but it's obviously something that needs adapting because people are adapting to it. And Henry deserved the win today. He pulled out some great arguments. None of those defeats in any of those rounds for me were the clear cuts. So obviously, I was still making the right points, just not enough of them. Maybe just a couple more points either side may have swayed one or two of the other judges. We don't know, but I didn't make those points, and I didn't think of those points. So that's what ended it today. But yeah, I'm gonna come back, and whoever I face next may have to suffer my wrath, and everybody else, so anyone else I have to face. And as much as I love those players that are vying for that number one contender spot, it's got to be Henry.
Absolutely. And so obviously, I'm a producer at heart. I got to make sure that my show is running on a steady ship. And I spoke to both of you guys behind the scenes, because in the event that either one of you did not become the victor of this match, I had potential options for your next upcoming matches. And unfortunately, you are in the seat where we have to activate those potential options. Now, the first would have been a very, very quick turnaround. It would have been in just a couple of weeks. You would have had the opportunity to play Chadwick Webb. The winner of that match would have then gotten another number one contenders match. However, whether it's you didn't want the rematch or you wanted some time off, which I would not besmirch you for, because you did play a lot leading up to this, you have chosen to turn down that option, which means we move on to the second thing, which is because you submitted a bracket for the tournament way back in the start, you're one of the 10 people who was given an initial spot in our summer invitational tournament. So you have a spot to play into that tournament. And after speaking behind the scenes, we decided that if you had won today, because of the timeline of recording, there was no way you could have competed anyways. But if you did not win, then you had the choice of whether or not you wanted to stay in it. Obviously, if you had gone down the path of playing Chad and had won, that may meant you still have to exit anyways. But you have instead chosen to go for this invitational tournament, which means if anyone happens to remember which way the brackets fell, horribly ironically enough, your next opponent is sitting here behind the scenes with me. Noah McLovin McCausland will be your next opponent. That match is coming up in the summer tournament. Gentlemen, it's been very friendly thus far. Does anyone have anything to say before we head out for the night?
I'm going to get shit on, so.
No, you are in the advantageous position of having been able to witness firsthand how I debate, so you do have a bit of advantage there in terms of seeing what happens, not just when things go on YouTube, but also the other times when things go on behind the scenes. So you get to see exactly the sort of the style and everything like that, and also what it takes to beat me. So you've got an advantageous position there that I certainly don't.
I was going to make a football reference, but I don't want to leave anybody out. So I was going to say it's like some D3 rated college school going up against Alabama for football. So it doesn't matter if you watch Alabama play. You just don't have the skill to face them.
Well, you got a little bit of time to put it together, Noah. Noah, thanks for being a good sport about this, man. It wasn't personal, I promise. It's just kind of the way the chips fell. But I look forward to seeing this matchup.
It'll be a nice rebound match for Joe. So
we'll see.
And of course, Joe, thank you so much, sir. Again, you put on an incredible run throughout the tournament. The thing that I have to respect most about it is, with the exception of the match against Chad, there was no point where you dominated. One of the things that Jeremy kind of talked about was the fact that because multiple of his early matches were these like roundhouse knockouts, it meant that when he finally got competition and tough challenges, it did put him in a bit of a spot where he struggled to win and then unfortunately eventually lost. Whereas yourself, every match was a go of it. You played your heart out. You had people who brought it to the table and you still pulled it out. You were unlucky today, but I have a hard time believing that you won't be back in the title picture in somewhere in the future. So to the first official champion of the new Movie Battleground reign, Joe, with that record, you earned it. And I look forward to seeing you back here in the future, sir.
Thank you.
All right. And as I send it to the back, guys, that is a wrap on the first title match of the new Movie Battleground. It is a hard-fought match between these two, but it is Henry Confidential Sanchez that comes out the victor, finally achieving a goal that had been in the back of his mind for oh so long. I want to say thank you to all of the judges, Noah, Kevin, and Alan, for being here tonight to help make this match happen. Thank you to Joe, again, for always being a top professional, putting in an excellent performance and playing his heart out. I look forward to seeing you back again in just a couple of months. And again, congratulations to Henry on making it to the top, because it was a hard-fought climb there, and you earned it tonight, sir. On behalf of everybody at Movie Battleground, my name is Aaron Knoll. Be sure to tune back in, because next week, next Saturday, 1 week from today, the big matches don't stop, because we have the two gentlemen who who made it to the finals alongside Henry and Joe, but just couldn't quite come out with that victory. We have Madi Raymond taking on Sean Hunter next week. So be sure to come back, tune in for that match, because the winner will be receiving a number one contenders match down the road. So with that said, my name is Aaron Knoll, and on behalf of everyone here at Movie Battleground, thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.